tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
The same class and the same boat, and we have the same common enemy, Amazon and Jeff Bezos. Who's with me? That's how you organize. It was the same problem with the anti-war rally a year ago, and Code Pink didn't want to show up to it because there were some speakers that they didn't agree with on the LGBTQ issue, which has nothing to do with fucking ending wars. And it's the joke I made, and I still make it in my act. Yeah, I want to stop a nuclear war, but not with those people. That's how. So it's the same thing. So anyway, it was too bad. I think that guy's doing great work. I think I think that the stress of his job, the work he's doing, has gotten to him. So that was unfortunate. He undermined his own work. When I'm explaining, well, why do you think that both the establishment and both parties are on board for Kamala Harris? Why do you think Google, who's in bed with the deep state, the CIA, the military-industrial complex, is doing this for Kamala Harris? Why do you think that is? I'm explaining, so he doesn't understand. So I'm explaining why that is. I'm explaining his own work to him, and obviously he's got some problems. Obviously, first thing he talked about is he had a mental breakdown at Joe Rogan's show. I get it. It's very stressful what he's doing. When you go up against the establishment, it's stressful, and you get everybody coming at you, and everybody's calling him a Trumper. And he couldn't help but do the same thing, which was unfortunate. Okay. But, it's not the first time someone's done that on my show to me, and I bet you it ain't going to be the last time. Let's bring on Ryan Dawson. Hey, Ryan Dawson is a radio show host, podcaster, author, and documentary filmmaker. He is the host of ANC Report, a platform featuring podcasts on politics and economics, as well as a forum for anti-neoconservative discussions. Look at that. His work has been featured on a variety of TV news networks, including RT, MSNBC, as well as political satire comedy shows like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. Please welcome to the show, Ryan Dawson. Hey, Ryan.
Good to be here, Jimmy. That what you were talking about earlier, we call the light switch brain. It's either or. It's like Daryl Cooper going on with Tucker Carlson and saying Churchill was a monster, and everyone going, "So you love Hitler?" It's one or the other for these people.
Okay. I didn't see that interview, but yeah, I've seen the reaction to it. Yeah,
it's just silly. Like he was just saying Churchill wasn't good either, and he was definitely not endorsing Stalin or Hitler or any of those monsters. But the way the light switch brain works is like if you're not A, you have to be B. And so if you're criticizing Kamala, you must love everything Trump does. Yeah. That's how they work. Tribalism. So yeah, I mean, I saw somebody make this point on Twitter, criticize Kamala Harris and then tell people you're not a Trump supporter and they don't know what to do. Like their brain short circuits, like, blah, 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 blah. No, you have to be a Trumper. Yeah. But you would agree with what I said about that Bobby Kennedy's speech at that Trump rally. Did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I mean, those are all positions you hold, and he's part of the Trump administration. So, but what I thought was interesting is when you asked Epstein why Google is after Trump, and he wouldn't answer. Like, here's why: Trump wants to get out of Ukraine. The MIC hates his guts. That's all he had to say. But what happens with these people is they overcorrect because everyone's calling him a Trumper, so he feels like he has to prove how much he isn't one. Yeah, and so that's what happens, I think.
Yeah.
We're on Rumble, right? This is not on YouTube?
This is Rumble.
So I don't have to pump the brakes like Dick Cheney going down a hill.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good.
So I just wanted to cover this story with you. I saw this the other day. Steven Crowder, right? Now, Steven Crowder, I haven't watched. I understand he got demonetized on YouTube, and I'm against that. And so I lost I took a lot of heat for that. They're like, why are you defending Steven Crowder? I'm not I'm defending free speech.
Yeah.
That's what I'm defending my own ability to make a living on YouTube. That's what I'm doing. So if I can let someone take away, just like Alex Jones, people said the same thing when I said it was wrong to ban Alex Jones on social media. And they're like, why are you defending Alex Jones? I go, I'm not defending Alex Jones. I'm defending free speech. And by defending free speech, I'm defending myself. And then, of course,
I got blanket banned before anybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, way before Jones or anything. I got kicked off MySpace in 2005 and AOL.
No kidding.
And I was first person kicked off YouTube. First person. I got blanket banned on everything.
So
Finally got a Twitter back last year when Elon came. I've seen some of my tweets on your show. I appreciate that.
No problem.
You're trying to give the establishment a heart attack there.
Well, so Steven Crowder. Now this is an interesting piece of video. He did some undercover video, and a lot of people will dismiss this, just like they dismissed Veritas when they exposed Pfizer, that guy from Pfizer, because they don't like who's holding the camera.
Right.
So it doesn't matter who's holding the camera. It doesn't matter who's holding that camera. It could be anybody. So Steven Crowder tweeted this out. The Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs admits that Trump indictments are a politically motivated perversion of justice, reveals lawfare involved in making former presidents a convicted felon backfired on Democrats. His former colleague Alvin Bragg's case is nonsense. You want us to watch it? Here we go.
Sure.
Yeah. Nicholas Biasi is the Chief of Public Affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. Something you may be familiar with, and the most prominent federal trial court in America.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And
is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
And that's why, like, he's surging in the polls. It's a perversion of justice. No. He was stacking charges and, like, rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense.
State levels are Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
who is they?
So this is the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the U.S. Department of Justice in New York on a hidden camera, an undercover camera, admitting everything that should be obvious to everybody. It certainly was obvious to former governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, who, when he went on Bill Maher's show, he said basically the same thing. But for some reason, it's not front page news. How is that not front page news? That the governor of New York and now the Chief Public Affairs Officer from the U.S. Department of Justice in New York now admit what Trump has been saying all along and what we've been saying at this show, that this is called lawfare, that they're doing to Trump something they would never do to anybody else, and it's to prosecute their political opponents, which is the thing they say Trump is going to do to his political opponents. They're actually in the process of doing it, and this proves it. And
their accusations are confessions.
And so that I have said that too. Every accusation they make is a confession. So let me play the rest of this, and then I'll get your comment on it, Ryan.
Sure.
I've known him for 15 years. He used to work in my office. It's before he decided to prosecute Trump. Did you know who he was? You do now. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So now he's very ambitious. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this until him.
Mr. Biasi is just saying the quiet part out loud.
So he's saying the quiet part out loud. And you're not supposed to say that. And this should be a big scandal, but you know why it's not a big scandal? Because the establishment media won't publicize it. And if the media doesn't report it, guess what? It's not a story. Just like you didn't know they did a January 6th in Brazil to get rid of Bolsonaro. Did the exact thing they did here, they did there. And Matt Taibbi and I were laughing about it. And Well, what I would say is obviously this Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs, he's a Russian. He's got to be. What else could I tell you about? What else could I tell my liberal brain because I can't handle being this wrong about everything? Anyway, Ryan, what do you have to say about this?
Well, they use censorship, defamation, and lawfare, usually in that order, to get rid of people. They've done it to Trump. They did defamation towards Russell Brand and the Tates and Candace Owens. They
Tulsi
went after
Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, and Google censored her too. All those people have been censored in some way also. And then you had Brazil kicking off X, although it looks like they'll probably be back soon. And obviously Pavel from Telegram being arrested in France, and Rumble being banned in France and several other countries. They do not want you to have free speech, because if you break the monopoly on the lies fall apart. They have to be constantly reinforced. And if there's even one place where people can hear the counter narrative, can you imagine back in 2002, 2001, if there had been one channel saying there are no weapons of mass destruction? You never got to hear that. Everybody was uniform in their lies about the WMDs, they even went to the UN with cartoon pictures of mobile weapons labs, with fake anthrax. There was no dissenting voice. And back then there was nothing to even get kicked off of because there was no social media.
Right.
So as bad as people think it is now, at least you have something to be censored from. Because before it was so much worse. It was whatever was on TV, that was it. That was the narrative, and they didn't have to worry about it. Now when they're going into hyperdrive trying to lie. Everyone knew this about Trump. I mean, they're doing Russiagate 4.0 right now. Do you remember the story where they said he went to Russia and had hookers pee on him?
Yeah.
That sounds more similar to something Hunter Biden probably did.
Yeah.
It's like whatever they do, they accuse their enemy of. And this is not, I know how bad Trump is on Israel. Like I got a boycott Israel flag back there, right? I know I'm not like endorsing his policies, but they are after him. And he has some policies that are good. Kamala has none. And Jimmy, I'm going to celebrate this being on your show with this this special coffee I have here. It's from, it's actually called Boycott Israel, which makes it taste better.
Ha ha.
And I've got a special mug I think you'll enjoy too. I'm just trying to give I hope Lindsey Graham is hate watching while he's shaving his legs. Here he is. It's the John McCain Rest in Hell mug.
Oh, look at that. Nothing against shaving your legs. It helps me swim faster.
There you go.
That's why
I don't think that's why Lindsey does it.
That's why I do it.
Lindsey Graham is so far in the closet he can see Narnia in his rearview mirror.
Well, let me show. This is what I how I responded to that video. I said, even if you hate Trump, this should scare you and outrage you. The very thing they said Trump was going to do and what made him dangerous to our democracy was that he would use the criminal justice system against his political opponents. And here they are admitting that's exactly what they've been doing to him. So if they can do this to a former president of the United States, they will certainly do it to anyone whose the establishment wants to silence and control. They certainly would have done this to Bernie Sanders if he would have won the primary, but they rigged the primaries instead. Yep. They would have certainly did this to Jill Stein or Cornel West if they were a threat to win the election or even had a significant impact on it. The point is, they've been lying again. They've been lying to you again, saying that democracy is on the ballot when tyranny, authoritarianism, election rigging is actually on the ballot. That's actually what we're looking at. Would you agree with that? I
mean, you summed it up, and this is consistent with these people. Remember, they accused Trump of quid pro quo, but it was Joe Biden on tape at the CFR meeting, as well as the Anti-Corruption Agency of Ukraine, talking about firing the prosecutor looking into PRISM.
That's exactly right.
No-show job. Like everything they've said about Trump, they're guilty of themselves. And everything they say about Russia, Israel actually does.
And exactly. Our country, it's like we're this traumatized, beaten spouse who still defends their nation through the abuse. That's really what America's good inside. I just know it, Ryan. I just know it.
The only thing we get from Israel is more demands. You're talking about a culture of people, a substantial portion of the public supports raping and torturing prisoners as they colonize Gaza and destroy the West Bank simultaneously. A bunch of psychopaths, and we're giving them billions of dollars.
So,
and that's one of the saddest things. You want to talk about not being on the news? That's not going to get covered.
No.
They're murdering babies, mean, they're dropping bombs on apartments, hospitals, mosques, churches.
I'm not allowed to show that on YouTube. That's for sure.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Nothing will get you banned faster.
So here's one more response I had. This is just more proof that you're not living in a democracy, but you're living in an authoritarian oligarchy run by authoritarian tyrannical criminals who control the government, the media, the courts, the elections, and ultimately they control you. Lots of dutiful peasants will choose to ignore this video because they don't like the source. They're already being trained to do so. Your government and democracy was stolen from you decades ago. Most of the people prefer to ignore this truth and just take it, which is why our country is going to shit and why we'll never have nice things again. Things like a thriving middle class. Yeah. So,
I would change oligarchy to plutocracy, which is ruled by money. It's more of what we call the donor class.
Yeah.
These people. This is Epstein's client list, by the way. I literally mapped it out. But like these are the people, and there was that story just a few months ago on the WhatsApp group of a bunch of billionaires that were getting together to manipulate a mayor in New York to go after people protesting genocide. This donor class, like when people say the deep state, the elite, the whatever, that's who you're talking about. It's a clique of billionaires. They're international. And they have certain agendas for methods of profiteering through government. It's like John Cusack said, the government's a giant ATM machine, but it's coming out of your bank account and it's going into select commercial interests. That's the problem.
Isn't it ironic that John Cusack's a Russiagator?
Yeah, well, he's blocked me on Twitter too. I don't know why.
He blocked me on Twitter too over Russiagate.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. I don't know. There's been several Russiagates. There's a new Russiagate.
It's happening. Yeah, we're going to cover that story in a second. But yeah, there's a new Russiagate happening for sure. So this should be...
It was right on time, right? It's like, oh, really?
Right on time.
Gosh, are you saying the Justice Department would lie about Russia? I'm shocked.
Yeah. So the people who are destroying the America are the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, all the three-letter things that will destroy the America. The one we didn't catch is the EGO, which is the ego of the donor class, the arrogance.
It's ESG and DEI too.
You're right. And, I've made this case. It's not just in the United States. It's in the entire West. It comes through Davos, the WEF. They have the same agenda. And it's to create, a lot of it is to create chaos in the West because chaos always favors the establishment. And, when you see them do a January 6th, which was obviously an FBI sign, when a congressman asked Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, did you have FBI assets dressed up like MAGA supporters inside the Capitol before the riot started? And he said, I can't answer that question. Well, you just answered it.
That is an answer. Yeah, that means yes, of course. That's why they had dropped Tucker Carlson, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he covered a lot of taboo subjects, but J6, they act like J6 was worse than 9/11.
That's right. Yes.
Which is insane.
And so they did the same thing. And I just found out because Twitter got banned in Brazil. I was reading an article saying that they did the same thing in Brazil to Bolsonaro. So how this happened, that they were afraid Lula was going to become president, meaning the Western billionaire class. And so he was too far left for them. He was scary for them. He was like Bernie Sanders. And so they put him in jail. They put Lula in jail. They thought the center-right guy was going to win the election, just like they thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election against Trump. But Hillary lost, and so did the center-right guy in Brazil, and Bolsonaro won, who they say is the Trump of Brazil. And they're like, oh, what do? We screwed up, just like they screwed up. And so what they had to do is they had to let Lula back out of prison because he's the only guy who could beat Bolsonaro at the ballot box. They let him out. He wins. And they immediately do their own January 6th event down in Brazil. And then they pass laws to make it illegal for Bolsonaro to run for president again. And it's like Matt Taibbi was on my show. He's like, they don't come up with a different story. No, it's the exact same thing. Yeah. And they don't have
provocateuring.
Yeah, it's called provocateuring.
Provocateuring, and you're not allowed to look at it. And if you do, you'll get canceled.
That's right.
And it's the subjects that, okay, if you talk about it, you get canceled. So you get flack when you're over the target. those are the things you have the most confidence in being correct about, are the things that you're not even allowed to question at all. And one of those is the sanctity of the Zionist state. And the same thing with September 11th, like all the kook stuff you're allowed to say. The dumbest takes on that ever are on Netflix, they're on YouTube, but anybody that gets near to what actually happened gets removed from the internet. And it's the same thing, like the same thing with the virus. You know, it's like the virus deniers and the weirdos and stuff, they got amplified. But the people that had a serious nuance take, you didn't get to hear at all. And you can go down the list with that. They amplify the kook stuff on purpose to make it look like conspiracies are a bunch of insane people, because those people do exist. You have airplane deniers and stuff like that too. But there is a middle ground, and that's the voice you never get to hear.
The fact that that isn't front page news, the fact that that isn't played on every lefty independent news show is a tragedy. And it just goes to show you the control they have. And there's very few independent news shows on the left that don't support Kamala Harris. They go right along with the CIA narrative, and they repeat it.
Yeah. It's like the Handel directive. That's sort of been recycled in the news in Israel, at least, but not in the US. And that got reported right away by Mondo Weiss and the Gray Zone. And then I think last June, Haaretz finally picked it up. But it's not until 500,000 people are protesting in Tel Aviv that they bring this up. All these huge stories, like the example I usually go to is thinking about the Glenn Maxwell trial. That should have been bigger than O.J. Simpson. And yet it got basically no coverage at all.
What trial is
because
that?
Glenn Maxwell, Epstein's right-hand woman.
Oh, you're talking about Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That got no coverage.
Ghislaine, too, because that's what she was. But
yeah.
It's Glenn. Yeah, she had a huge trial, and there was no public interest. I mean, the public interest is there. There was no media interest in it.
That's right.
And these are some of the most powerful people in the world.
So
I'm listed here. I don't know if that'll show up. But it's like people are like, "Where's the client list?" I'm like, "I released that years ago. I've been on that case since 2007."
How did you get a hold of that list?
Because I talked to the victims, and I went through like these things, this stuff. Every time they say, "Here's a new file," it's not new. It's the same thing with September 11th. Like, we have victims' families suing for information we already have. Like, we already know from the Joint Inquiry Senate investigation, is called the JIS report, into 9/11, that Saudi Arabia, through Omar Bayoumi and Osama Basnan, did give logistical and financial support to Nawif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar. That is already known and admitted by our own Senate investigation. The problem is people don't even know that investigation happened and don't know to read it. They only know the 9/11 Commission report, which they were told not to read. Because you've got people like Alex Jones that just swerve you off the cliff, get you barking up the wrong tree about Building 7 or whatever, and not looking into the meat of it. We have a lot of information on these things, Epstein too, that is not secret. It's not hidden. It's just you never heard of it because you have the charlatan parade out there distracting the hell out of everybody. And we got these clients. Like, they're in his calendar. There's people, there's names in the black book. This is not just a copy of names in the black book. A lot of people in the black book are just people they knew who were innocent. These people got sued. There was a case for JP Morgan Chase. There was different cases out of the Virgin Islands with Denise George. And we know about James Staley and Glenn Dubin and all this. I mean, it's come right out of the mouths of the girls that they raped. And it's just not all in one place. It's not like a list locked in a locker. You have to gather up all the stories and, and go through it. But no one wants to, they act like we live in a Marvel cartoon or something. Like, oh yeah, we're going to find a folder in a lockbox somewhere. That's not, no one does that. Although they did find tapes and CDs in his New York rape mansion, which did have Selena Dubin listed on the front of one of the CDs. That box disappeared for days and then was returned. And the FBI is just sitting on it. I mean, where's the public pressure saying, okay, what's on those? Says AV, on there, adult video. That's what that means. There's a lot of evidence that's been gathered. The problem is we can't get this information in front of the right people. The really knowledgeable people don't have a voice.
Over to Steph.
Okay, here we go, Jimmy. That one faster. Here we go. I read that one, Spike Protein. All right. Twitter says, love your vibe, Steph. Thank you. You know how I feel about you, Twitter. Steph, can you read some super chat in Kamala's voice? In honor of the strong and independent Democrat candidate, keep up the good work. Brock, how was that okay, Brock? Diago Fricks. Thank you, Diago Fricks. Much appreciated for that question. Let's go here. Candace Strike. Much appreciated. Back to Jimmy. Jokes.
Oh, hang on. It's back
Jokes.
to Steph.
The Lorax, the biggest mistake the founding fathers made was to imagine that the masses were capable of making it all work and keeping it the balance. Like Carlin said, this is the best we can do. All right, let's see here. Super chats. Jimmy, and this is funny. Nonya, you say, Jimmy, your take on defunding police is garbage. You clearly live in a nice part of town where you can complain about parking tickets. Well, one, we don't complain about parking tickets because, Nonya, I'm going to push back on this. We don't get them.
I have a handicap.
Right.
I have handicap parking.
Yeah, and
I have a handicap parking placard, so I don't get any tickets.
And we made an oath to ourselves, especially when we were auditioning, for actors and actresses. And yeah, I said actresses. I'm taking a stand. I'm sick of people calling them actors. You don't get Best Actress award with a dick. To be seen, right? So anyways, my point is this, that we don't get parking tickets. That's where I'm taking it. And, I don't know what you're talking about when Jimmy's garbage about defunding the police. Have you seen how much they're funding police? Have you seen it? Have you seen what they're wearing? Police in Los Angeles, they wear like they're going to war. All the gear. Have you seen the police at all the protests? What they're wearing and all of that? They're wearing military cover. So, do our police need that, or do we need a new style of policing? Do we need intervention? I don't need police coming and hassling a homeless person. I need a social worker. I need somebody who's going to help them and facilitate and give them, give them a hot meal or give them water, give them shelter. I would like to see more services that we're expanding that concept of our police, but we expand it. They used to be called peacekeepers. Don't you remember that? So that's how I feel about that, Nonya. Okay. Back to Jim.
So what this shows you is this marks the end of the shift from the Democratic Party into the party of George Bush and Dick Cheney is now complete. And they're not afraid that Dick Cheney is now on board with being a Democrat and supporting the Democrats' presidential candidate over the Republican. They're bragging about it. This is called Harris Wins. This is a Twitter account called Harris Wins. It says, breaking, Dick Cheney just announced he will be voting for Kamala Harris. Wow. See, it says wow because like us, she can't believe Dick Cheney's still alive.
I got ready to say the same joke.
Oh, really? Yeah.
There's over 200 Republicans. It's the whole neocon list that did it. They're all endorsing Harris because she's the war party.
Exactly. Because they all agree on the important things. The important thing is to make it look like it's a positive by putting the word wow at the end. So the doctor removed the wrong leg in surgery, but at least I have the bad leg that still needs removing. Wow. That's what this is like. And I think it's important for us to stretch every day. And I'm going to keep this story with me to show my shit-lib Hollywood friends, just to watch their elaborate circle jerk dissolé contortions to explain this one. Especially after years and years of them using anything Republican as a social cudgel. Now Dick Cheney, easily one of the top two most evil characters in the world over the last 50 years, is got to be Dick Cheney. And they're, wow. Isn't that great? Wow. And so
he's irredeemable. And the other side, you take the best of the Democrat Party, which would have been like Tulsi and RFK Jr., and they're on Trump's side. You're seeing an establishment versus anti-establishment. And Trump is not fully anti-establishment, but much more so than Kamala.
Well, he
differs on two major things. The Ukraine war, which is huge. There's 500,000 people died in that. and he's willing to talk to North Korea, and nobody else is. So that's important to me. And, you know, given those choices, Trump is the better choice, and they're insanely going after him. That's not an endorsement of all the other dumb stuff he did, pulling out of missile defense treaties, you know, all his support for Israel, journeying up the war for Iran,
bullshit he does. Yeah, his bullshit rhetoric in Israel, his bullshit rhetoric with Venezuela.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of horrible things about Donald Trump to oppose, for sure.
Like, I made a film called Trump Sinus Ball and Chain, 1 hour long, just bashing him, the Kushners, that whole clique. And people still call me a Trump supporter. whenever I'm like, well, I'm glad we got out of TPP and NAFTA, and I didn't want to be in the Paris Accords, and whatever I agree with. I'm glad we didn't escalate the war in Syria and things like this. I don't want to go to war. But you're like, oh, so you just love Trump? I'm like, man, I ripped on him before it was cool. I even made a movie about all the corruption. It was funny is all the stuff in that movie. There's plenty of things, criminal things they could indict him for, but they can't because they're guilty of all the same crimes.
That's right. That's why it took them so long to impeach him. They had to find a crime that Trump committed that they also weren't guilty of. So here's
very hard for Hillary.
Very hard for
money
Hillary.
Laundering. What?
So the transformation of the Democratic Party into the party of Bush Cheney is complete. Instead of this shocking Kamala Harris supporters into rethinking exactly what the F is happening, they look at this endorsement as a good thing. They're brainwashed and brain dead Stepford voters. That's what this is.
I'd argue Bush and Cheney went to the left side because it was Democrats that started the First World War, the Second World War, Vietnam, and Korea. They were traditionally the war party. And George Bush and Cheney, that's why they call them neocons, is like they went over to that side with bigger government, more government spending, and more war.
Well, here Bernie Sanders was asked about this. Watch this guy. This guy is such a
He's
clown.
Trigger them.
He's such a, what'd you say?
Bernie Sanders triggers everybody.
He's such a clown. Well, it's because he broke our hearts. We really believed what he said. I did.
It's sad because he knows better and he still toes the line.
That's what's sad. The sad thing is he knows better. So let's watch this.
Senator, before I let you go, I do have to ask you about her recent endorsements by two people who are not progressives at all. Of course, I'm talking about Dick and Liz Cheney. This week, they said they're going to support her. They're going to vote for her. It's worth noting, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney voted with former President Trump more than 90% of the time, was quite critical when President Biden picked her as his running mate. Would you welcome seeing Liz Cheney out on the campaign trail?
Well, Kristen, what I think Dick and Liz Cheney are saying is that in this existential moment in American history, it's not just issues. Cheney and I agree on nothing, no issues. But what we...
Do I agree with Cheney on anything? No, but I am being blackmailed and threatened with unspeakable tortures by Dick Cheney. So maybe. Here we go.
do believe in is that the United States should retain its democratic foundations. And it's not just Cheney. I think there is a significant number of Republicans who say, well, you know, I may not agree with the vice president on this issue or that issue, but I cannot support somebody who's a pathological liar, somebody who fomented a insurrection to overthrow the election return. So I applaud the Cheneys for their courage in defending democracy. Obviously, on all the issues, we have very different points of view.
All right.
Cheney and I agree on nothing, but that's not going to stop me from doing what I'm told. They're going to punch me in the eye again and arrest my wife.
You agree on Jan 6th. You agree on that narrative.
Yeah, they certainly do. I like how he says that. He says, we agree on the maintaining democratic foundations.
What?
And when I said, you mean like rigging their primary, then throwing out the results of that primary anyway, and then disenfranchising 14 million voters and having the presidential nominee installed by party elites and billionaire donors without any votes or any input from the voting public? You mean like those democratic foundations?
Like Cheney supporting Ahmed Chalabi and that clique in Iraq and overrunning that government and installing one. All the color-coded revolutions, are those democratic?
It's not what Bernie Sanders cannot support. It's the part that he can support that bothers everybody. That's the part.
He's got to have an excuse. He said, well, it's J6.
Yep.
J6 is worse than October 7th and 9/11 combined. You had J6. It's like, okay, you let them in. These people walking around, they didn't bring weapons. It's not an insurrection. It was a protest. And you contrast that with the mostly peaceful protest where they're setting car lots on fire and some people died and just running in and looting stores openly. That's a riot. This was a protest. And what they did is they physically interrupted the count before it got even to Arizona about election discrepancies. They were just not even going to let the public see that. And they didn't. And then they convened in the middle of the night and Joe Biden became selected president.
There's a guy
and you're
who
not allowed to question it at all.
He went on Theo Vaughn's show and said that he got cheated twice in his run for the Democratic nomination. And here he is saying, yeah, but I got to support those people who cheated me without extracting anything from them for my support.
Hillary said she got cheated. So did Al Gore. You know, they're like, oh, well, it was rigged, blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
Trump says it's illegal.
That's
right.
You
can't do that. We've determined this, and you have to agree with us.
Here's what
the same system that constantly lies about everything else.
Here's what Glenn Greenwald said. He said, aside from calling Dick Cheney a fascist, racist, war-profiteering war criminal, liberals also claimed he only became vice president because the Supreme Court stole the 2000 election from him. Now they're all proclaiming that Cheney supports Kamala to save American democracy. The point isn't Democrats are hypocrites. Hypocrisy is too pervasive in politics to bother denouncing it. The point is that Cheney doesn't give a shit about democracy. He supports Kamala because she'll serve his long-standing agenda better than Trump.
Yes.
Yep.
That's why.
Because Kamala will continue the war in Ukraine against Russia. That's their big issue.
Trump
and Vance are not interested in that war. They want out.
That's right. That's what Bobby Kennedy said at the rally, at the Trump rally, and everybody cheered it. Kamala's campaign manager, this is Max Blumenthal, has enthusiastically welcomed the endorsement of Dick Cheney, stating she deeply respects his courage to put country over party. So the Kamala 24 deeply respects one of the most devious war criminals alive and considers him courageous. Dick Cheney disseminated fake intelligence linking Saddam Hussein to al-Qaeda, pushed the WMD hoax, ordered the unmasking of Valerie Plame as an undercover CIA officer as retaliation for her husband, Ambassador Joe Wilson exposing the Bush administration's lie about Saddam Hussein obtaining enriched uranium from Niger. Cheney's machinations were aimed at guaranteeing a U.S. invasion and occupation that wound up leaving 1 million Iraqis dead, brought ISIS to the region, and maimed or killed tens of thousands of Americans. The former vice president simultaneously presided over a no-bid $7.5 billion contract in Iraq for Halliburton, where he served as CEO. And he established a secret torture program that yielded worthless intelligence. To this day, he's not only unrepentant about his torture chambers, he's proud of them. The Kamala campaign wants us to forget Cheney's record. We are supposed to see him as a hawkish but wise elder crossing the aisle for the good of the republic. Well, the reality is, Cheney did far more damage to the country and world than Donald Trump has. It is such a colossal insult that Cheney is able to enjoy his twilight years in a mansion on Maryland's Eastern Shore, counting his money without ever having faced a trial for any of his titanic crimes, while Trump becomes the first former U.S. president convicted of a felony for concealing a measly payoff to a porn actor. Cheney is supporting Kamala for the same reason as Bill Kristol, the McCain family, and an array of Bush-era neocons, because she is an empty vessel for the post-9/11 security state and will joyfully consolidate the Democrats as the party of endless war. The 1,160,000 shares of Halliburton stock that Cheney received when he retired are also a likely part of the calculus.
I'd just change it to actress instead of actor.
Okay.
When he mentioned Valerie Plame getting ousted, it was worse than that because she worked for Brewster Jennings and Associates, which was a front for the CIA. So her entire team tracking nuclear weapons proliferation also got outed with her. And that was about the lies about yellow cake uranium from Niger, but it didn't stop there. Cheney reiterated the BS from the PNAC group about Muhammad Atta getting anthrax in Prague and from Iraqis. And yet Iraq didn't have anthrax, neither did Al-Qaeda. There was no meeting in Prague. And even though the Israelis said they witnessed the meeting, they lied. But James Woolsey, who was an Epstein client, brought that back. And then it got reported by Gary Schmidt and Fred Barnes, who were working for Robert Kagan and William Crystal in the Project for New American Century. And Cheney was the guy that amplified that. He and Condi Rice lied, connecting Iraq to 9/11 when they had nothing to fucking do with 9/11. And we invaded Iraq and killed nearly 1 million people.
Well said. Well, here's you want to see the reaction of Bobby Kennedy, who was a Democrat his whole life.
Yeah.
Until they cheated him, which I told him they would. They cheated him and rigged their primary, so he had to leave and run as an independent because the Democratic Party is so corrupt. The last thing they believe in is real democracy, and the last thing they want is for people to have a say in who's going to be the presidential nominee. It was so bad he had to leave the party. Oh, Kennedy, Robert Kennedy.
Kennedy. And again, we don't agree with his policies on Israel and other things.
No.
Well, let's be nuanced here and see what he said, what he's getting punished for.
Well, here's what he said. Cheney's resuscitation of the Democratic presidential nominee finalizes the hijack of the party of peace by warmongering neocons and the military-industrial complex. There is nothing left of the party of JFK and RFK. So he's 100% correct about that. And you can see I agree with it so much I liked it.
Yeah. I'll go in and get that one liked too. Yeah, his father and his uncle did oppose those forces, and what happened to them?
They both got killed, I think, if I remember my history correctly. Real Vernacular says, I applaud the Cheneys for their courage in defending democracy that allowed Dick Cheney to murder millions of innocent people with zero accountability.
It was from that era where we had Dick, Bush, and Colin in the top offices saying we got screwed. If you want to know why JFK got killed, go see my pinned tweet. It's on the very top. That was the motive of what happened to JFK. And man, if that story would break, there never would have been an Iraq war or a Syrian war, any of this stuff. It would have stopped right there in the 60s.
Well, I was told, Brian, in a Democratic Party email that I would be receiving some free joy if I support Kamala. You're just being a big downer. That's
free joy. It's hard to listen to her talk. She sounds like she's always on the verge of crying or something. And she wants to do this like big sister coffee talk, like to try to be relatable, but she laughs like a hyena. And every time she tries to explain something, it's like listening to a kid doing a book report that didn't read the book. And they're just sitting there saying the same thing 6 different ways. It's embarrassing. And that we have 300+ million people in the United States. And this is the best they have to offer. I swear they kept Joe in there because Kamala couldn't win a primary, even though they knew he was senile. Just long enough so he could like hand the baton to her. And now they've got the entire machine, Google and the rest of them, pushing this creature on us. And she's not going to really be the president, just like Joe is not there either. It's Anthony Blinken and the donor class that make all the decisions. They just have a placeholder there. And this really shows it to you with Biden shaking hands with John Cena. He's out there just, no one's in front of him. He doesn't know where he is. He's been like that for years. We all knew that. That wasn't some surprise in the Trump debate. So who's been running the country? Because you have a vapid, vacant old man who probably has dementia. It doesn't matter what concoction of drugs they put in him. They can't amp him up with enough amphetamines for him to get a few sentences right. So if he isn't doing it, who is? Who's running the show right now? Because it's not Biden and it's not Harris. They just want a placeholder there to rubber stamp their agendas. And Kamala is one of those. She supports every war, or the entire foreign policy, the MIC, the entire apparatus. She will go with it. They're just there. It's been this way since Grant started. That's why we have lobbyists. They used to meet in the lobbies of hotels with Ulysses Grant. It's been like that since Lincoln messed it up. We have special interests that run democracy. And they're able to get away with it because we don't have a free press that can call them out on the corruption. Free speech would fix all of these things because free speech holds them accountable. And then when people take bribes, there's consequences for it. But if there's no accountability, there's no consequences. So it will never end until we do something about this mass media juggernaut. That is why the most important issue, you're not going to win politically or socially until you win in the media. You have to get the media first to fix the other things, which is why shows like this are so important. This is even though this is on Rumble and can only be on Rumble, can't even be on YouTube. At least there's somewhere to say this. There wasn't in the past. I think you could probably put it on Substack and X too.
So Ryan, why do you support Trump? That's my question.
I'm a Ron Paul libertarian type. Like I don't support these wars. I just see it as, look, being realistic, it's Trump or Harris, honestly. And I will hold my nose and support Trump over that, although I'd prefer neither, because it's just childish to say, well, I'll just doesn't matter. It does matter. Like, she is a lot worse. Well, and yes, the lesser two evils. Yeah, lesser. That is better, even though it isn't good. It's just like something you have to do while you work on the other things. As I just said, you have to work on breaking the media monopoly, or you're never going to get a good candidate.
What they're never going to let go of the media. That's what Bill Clinton's job was in 1996 when he did the Telecommunications Act, which took us from 50 giant media companies down to 6. And everybody was like, hey, that's going to be the whole point is that you have different voices in the media. You can't just have 6 companies controlled by a handful of billionaires. That's bad for democracy. And Bill Clinton's response to that was, no, there's the internet now. And so that will be the new. But now, of course, then the government, in collusion with the military-industrial complex, big pharma, and those social media and big tech, they control that too. And so
it was in the Twitter files,
and the Twitter files
that applied to Meta and the rest of them. And it started with Lincoln closing down the newspapers. Like when he did that after the war, they never recovered because they got such a head start because all the competition was illegal or thrown in jail. And so from then on, and then you get Grant, and it's just been mercantilism ever since, where he married corporation and state, and they went out west and genocided the American Indians, and they kept going west all the way to the Philippines. It's never been reversed. And when it started to get that way, you have people like Bill Clinton come in and go, no, we're going to monopolize this again. And when the internet starts to grow, no, the 3-liter spooks get in there and say, you got to get rid of this person and that person, get rid of her, get rid of him, not allowed to say this. And they do shadow banning, outright banning, amplifying kook stuff. And this came out in the Twitter files. So this is a known thing. And yet nothing's done to correct it. That's why the brand new media, you could say, with Rumble, X, Substack, X is so-so, but Rumble, Substack for sure, and Telegram, they're going to go after them hard because that's where you actually have free speech, because you don't really have it on Twitter, and you definitely don't have it on Meta or YouTube.
So why do you think a guy like Peter Thiel, who everybody said is a big, did he found Rumble, or is he just a big investor in it?
He was an investor in it, and I think what they wanted to do was he was like a DeSantis guy, and he wanted to have his own say, but it's just more like the 2 wings of the same bird type of thing. And what happened though is, so Rumble went out trying to grab web liberties of stuff that doesn't matter, stuff that's not political, like the red pill dude or whatever, just things that get eyeballs to grow their company. But those people started getting political, and their whole brand rested on the case of, well, we don't ban you like YouTube does, because who in the world would go to Rumble if they have a YouTube? There's so many more eyeballs on YouTube. The only people that were on Rumble were the YouTube refugees. Well, they're refugees from YouTube for a reason. So Rumble ends up gathering all these people, and then because of BitChute and Odyssey are behind as options, Rumble can't back off from what they started. If they ban one person, everyone's like, oh, Rumble's the same. And they're all going to leave and they're all going to go to BitShooter Odyssey. So those other companies keep Rumble honest because its entire brand rests on not censoring people. Now, they do turn the volume down. They will not put people on the front page that don't like stuff like that. I think that's my opinion. But, and it is promoted a lot of like infotainment garbage or whatever. That might be the better business model. That's where the money is. They do what they got to do. You used to have to pay to use Rumble. Way back when I started it, you had to pay them for the privilege to be on Rumble. Now, Rumble's free. And I think it's the place for now for free speech. But then you see what happens is states can ban Rumble itself. Like Rumble cannot.
It's banned in Brazil.
In France. You can't get it in Russia. You can't get it in Brazil. Because they just came in and said, you got to implement these policies against free speech. And they said, how about no? We'll just not be in your country. So you got a VPN to Rumble. And it's owned by other people. Like Chris is good on free speech. So Teal may have gave it the seed money and they're like, thanks, but we're not doing what you want. And it's too late. They've invested so much in so many creators and so much into the platform. They can't turn that around. And so they don't know what to do. So what you'll see is them trying to find some pretext to ban it, just like they want to ban TikTok. Same thing. They didn't control TikTok. So they're like, get rid of it. I don't think they can get rid of TikTok, but they can kind of strong arm the people who do own TikTok into saying, all right, you need to ban these people, these creators. Don't say Palestinians are people too. Don't say these things. Get rid of those because TikTok's pretty bad on censorship.
Yeah, they're the worst.
People are like, oh, go over there. I'm like,
they're the worst.
They're really bad. Well, no, Facebook is the worst. But then, yeah, TikTok.
Well, I'm doing a show called Rumble Time, which I hope becomes popular enough that we could do it in a studio and have a show that looks exactly like a real TV show that competes with Bill Maher, because Bill Maher is ripe to be taken down. And and you know, he's got a lot of neocon talking points. He doesn't even realize that they're neocon talking points. I think Bill Maher's, you know, his heart's in the right place, but he's wrong about so many things. And so we're doing the show Rumble Time. The next one is September 27th. And it's here. We're doing it out of a theater, Two Roads Theater here in Studio City. We're going to try and make it look nice, but it's not a studio. It's not a TV studio. That costs a lot of money. And so hopefully we can find the funders to put us in a real TV studio. And that's my fingers crossed that we can do that show. Because you're right, the whole edge of Rumble is that you have free speech. And you don't have free speech anywhere else. And no other social media gives you free speech. Rumble does. That's their edge. And I'm trying to popularize that for them. So, all right, over to Steph.
Same here. I've been pushing it for many years. Get on Rumble. Get on Rumble. In fact, every show I go on, they know you have to go to Rumble.
Yeah,
because Dawson's Dawson, and you can't do that on YouTube. And I know I'm banned on YouTube. Yeah. You're not allowed. You can tell the truth to a point, but there's a whole series of things that are just the third rail. You can't touch it. And the problem is those are the things we have to talk about the most. I mean, if you're not talking about those things, then what does it matter? It's like talking about World War II and not mentioning Germany. How can you do it?
Okay, over to Steph.
Well, I just wanted to start talking about World War II and not talk about Germany. Let's have that conversation.
Well, we can talk about the Pacific Theater, maybe.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, Ryan, people want to know what the graphs are on your wall behind you. Are those anything specific?
The white one is the Epstein crime map. And that green one is NUMEC, Nuclear Material and Equipment Corporation. It goes over the theft of highly enriched uranium by the Israelis when they built the bomb.
All right. Much
appreciated.
And
it's the same thing because it's like the Rudolf Sonborn Institute, which had like Rabbi Herbert Friedman and Les Wexner morphs into the Epstein ring. It's the same funders and money. This Epstein is the 2.0 version of Sonborn. Okay. It grew out of that. He's not the first. You had Bobby Baker before that, giant blackmail rings. And so I mapped it out and put all the people on there. I've released the client list. I've made a movie called NUMEC that explains the whole thing, why they had to kill Kennedy when he's expecting Dimona. It was not about the Castro. It wasn't about the Executive Order 1111-0, which all that does is limit who can issue silver certificates. He was not challenging the Fed. Like all this stuff you've heard about Kennedy is wrong. And that map goes through it. And there's a free movie. It's pinned on Twitter right now. That's what that is. I like to take these things and literally map them out so that people, it's sort of a memory guide. Oh yeah, that person. So when you hear like William Burns talk, like, oh, wait, you're on the list. You're a liar. Anytime these people pipe up and go, look at them. And you know the relationships they have between each other because it explains that too.
All right. What's the name of the film again?
Numec, Numec. It's my pinned tweet. If people go to Twitter, Rye Liberty, you can watch it for free. It's also on Rumble.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Back to
Probably better on Rumble. It's a bigger, I don't know.
I want to show people that Kamala Harris, so, she got endorsed by Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, we used to call him Dr. Evil. There was no more hated person in the history of America than Dick Cheney. He was more hated than Manson.
He's worse than Richard Pearl.
And he was horrible. So, but now he's endorsed Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris is going to fulfill his neocon warmongering agenda more likely in the way he wants it than Trump. And that's what this is about.
He endorsed Hillary too. Remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, Dick Cheney was against Trump when back in his first race. And I thought, is this 4D chess? Like Cheney's endorsing the opponent, so opposite. Because I thought this guy is totally irredeemable. He got more heat than George Bush.
Yeah.
Because everyone understood Bush Jr., Bush the Lesser was sort of...
He was being led around by his nose by people like Dick Cheney.
Right. Kellogg, Brown, and Root and Halliburton. That's what that was.
He was at least a little apologetic. Dick Cheney was never apologized for a torture program. He never apologized for murdering 1 million Iraqis or lying to the people or lying about the intelligence that said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. He did all those things. And he's completely unapologetic. Like, so he said so. So
George Bush did have the roadmap for peace and got settlements removed from Gaza, although they just relocated them to the West Bank. Like there's stuff you can point to say, well, at least he did that. Cheney, on the other hand, it's like he doesn't even lie. Most of them all lie and have some altruistic or like good veneer to point to and go,
he doesn't care
to save the Kurds or something.
He doesn't. He doesn't bother.
He's like proud and unremorseful.
That he's evil.
Does it?
Yeah. Well, here's Kamala react. Somebody got a video. Here she is trying to pretend she's a regular person just shopping. And they ask her, here she's going to react to Dick Cheney endorsing her. And let's
like Liz Warren riding a bus.
Yeah, here we go.
Look, we're drinking beer.
I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important,
it's okay to team up with warmongering murderers and torturers, the dregs of society, the worst thing in the world, people who lied to the American people to get us into an illegal war so we can murder 1 million people, that kind of stuff. People who then passed the Patriot Act and put us in the surveillance state, people like that, people who turned Americans against Americans over a phony war for the military-industrial complex. It's okay. And she's going to say that doing what that is, and why is Dick Cheney endorsing her? Because she's going to do more of what Dick Cheney wants. And she calls...
this owner of that spice store donated $100,000 to her campaign. She was not at a random grocery shop.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, this whole thing was staged and rigged.
So let me
what a surprise.
Let me try to play this. This all staged and rigged. Let me try to play this all the way through without stopping. Hang on.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans.
Well, then why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep saying that half the country don't respect our democracy, half the country are terrorists, half the country... Why do you keep doing that? Are working for Trump, working for Russia, Why do you then have the Justice Department of the Democrats underhandedly prosecuting, using the criminal justice system to prosecute their number one political opponent? Why don't you stop doing that? Oh, that's right. You're actually pretending you're not doing the exact thing you're accusing your opponent of. That's okay. Here we go.
And them stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like the folks I was just talking with, it really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
Right.
I'm convinced that she gets paid by the hour to talk. It's like the taxi meter's running, so the most simple thing, she just keeps talking.
Like Russia is a big country. I'm surprised she wasn't buying hot sauce.
Me too. And I'm not saying that she's on Xanax. I'm saying she talks like she is always.
I think she's a dry drunk. Go ahead.
Here's what Robert F. Kennedy says. Cheney's resuscitation by the Democratic presidential nominee finalizes the hijack of the Party of Peace by the warmongering neocons in the military-industrial complex. There's nothing left to the party of JFK and RFK.
That was worth repeating, yeah.
Yeah. And here's what I said. The transformation of the Democratic Party into the party of Bush Cheney is complete. Instead of the shocking Kamala Harris supporters, you think it would shock their conscience. It's been like, so if Hitler came around and said, you know what, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris, they would go, oh, look, even Hitler likes her, instead of going, wait a minute. So their whole idea is, hey, you know, Hitler, yeah, he's the worst guy in the world. He killed 6 million Jews. You know, he just endorsed Kamala Harris. You know, there's another side to Hitler that people just don't see.
Didn't Vladimir Putin say he prefer Kamala too?
Yes, I'm pretty sure he did.
I think he did, and he's sort of like, I mean, obviously he's not Hitler, but they try to paint him as if he was, and there's pretty high gap between those two. But yeah, he said that, and they just ignored it because they have demonized that dude. Like Trump and Putin get more flack from mass media than anybody.
I just want to hear her one more time.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement.
I'm honored to have Dick Cheney's endorsement. Why, Harvey Weinstein wasn't available?
Go get Glenn Maxwell. See who she wants.
Wow.
She flew around a lot of your party members to Rape Island.
You're talking about Ghislaine?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is her name supposedly pronounced Gwen? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's Ghislaine Maxwell, but you can call her Ghislaine. I kept calling her Ghislaine.
Yeah, because of the double entendre.
Exactly, and then everyone started calling her that because they all copied my stuff anyway.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, oh, that has now become her name, which is hilarious.
That's good. You should be proud. Even I use it.
It's funny, Ghislaine. Yeah, she's, her father was involved as he was an informant for Israeli intelligence.
Yeah.
And helped capture Mordecai Benunu, the whistleblower nuclear weapons. And it's just like, oh, gee, Epstein and Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel and all these people are involved in this massive kitty fiddling ring that involve the top people, including presidents, prime ministers, Ehud Barak, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, the names and the names that aren't famous but are very wealthy of all these bankers. They're just not interested in it at all. But it was extremely slanted toward the left on that one. The right's got their own rings. But look, you have to be compromised to get promoted. And I think a lot of the reason a lot of these people that you do know better still pull the line is because they got skeletons in their closet. We had 3 House speakers in a row caught in infidelity. 3 in a row.
3 in a row what?
So, like you had Hastert, who was kitty fiddling boys on his wrestling team, Speaker of the House. He had 3 in a row, all involved in some sort of
sex scandal,
sexual escapade scandals. Yeah. And you see that on Wall Street too. The people that blew the whistle on the subprime housing mortgage gambit, people like Vitter and Spitzer and stuff, suddenly, oh yeah, you had an affair with an 18-year-old. It comes out when they do it.
That's right.
But not Bill Gates and the rest of that are doing so much more, right? And they're like, oh, shh. They're donating on Epstein's behalf to MIT so that Israel can take trade secrets that the university sponsored. That's what they're doing.
So
Bill Gates, Bill Gates was at one point the richest person on earth. You can't bribe that guy.
That's right.
You bribe the poor, you blackmail the wealthy.
That's right. And that's what Jeffrey Epstein was all about. And that's why his wife, one of the reasons she said she eventually left him was because he wouldn't stop hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of senior executives at Microsoft are also on that list. Nathan Myhrvold, for example, and they got caught with kiddie porn at the the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Well, I didn't hear about that, but I do know that didn't they blame it on at Bill Gates's house? There was like his gardener or somebody who worked at his property. They found all this kiddie porn. Am I making that up?
No, one of his employees at his foundation got caught with like terabytes of it, which is insane. Which means it's not all one person. You couldn't.
So it wasn't at one of his property. It wasn't at a Bill Gates property.
No, it was. It was at the prop. It was on the company computer, so that happened. But like that is like okay, but that whatever. We have so much worse evidence, like so much better evidence, but worse crimes on Bill Gates, things he was doing. He'd been having affairs. He admitted to the one he did in 2000. He used to have 2 cars, so he'd drive one to work and then he'd leave in the other one, so you wouldn't know. He would look like he was still there. But yeah, you have internal emails of him being late in the night at Jeffrey Epstein's property when Glenn and Eva Dubin were there with their daughter, who would have been at maximum 16 years old at the time, and staying late into the night. Like, they compromise these people. The Dubins were there. They raped Virginia Roberts, and she described the hotel they were in, the fact that his wife was pregnant, like everything lined up, and that case has been completely buried. And when anyone talks about Epstein, all they talk about is Clinton, Andrew, like the sort of uber famous celebrity names, whatever. And they're not getting into the nitty gritty of these Wall Street tycoons that work for Barclays, that work for Bear Stearns, these, the Ace Greenbergs and these kind of people. They're involved in it. And women have been complaining about the work culture in these financial firms and hedge funds for a long, long time. It's understood, as Kamala probably knows, to get ahead, you got to give some head.
Guess who else reacted to Cheney endorsing?
Tulsi and Tucker?
Here's Tulsi. She's going to react to Dick Cheney, Dr. Evil, guy who ordered a torture program, lied.
She's wearing the same outfit, it looks like, the white one that she schooled Kamala Harris.
That's right.
Possibly.
Dick Cheney, the guy who lied to the American public, got false evidence planted that the Iraq had WMDs in the New York Times, all that stuff, ordered a torture program to cover it up, is now endorsing
He said
Kamala.
They reconstituted the nuclear weapons program.
Is now endorsing Kamala Harris, and that doesn't shock the conscience of the Democrats, but it does for someone like Tulsi Gabbard. And let's remind people why the Democrats hated Tulsi Gabbard. She stepped down as the vice chair of the DNC to endorse Bernie Sanders in 2016. She then went on to tell the truth about the Syrian war.
Yep.
You can't tell the truth about war. They're going to submit. They still slander me. Look at my Wikipedia page. It's all because I told the truth about war, and then I told the truth about COVID. So those were the 2 things they went after her for. And now she's on.
I have the longest Canary Mission rap sheet of anybody.
Yeah.
They hate me the most. I'm proud of that.
So here she is. She's gonna, because in general, she tells the truth about war. She's horrible on Israel Palestine, but I'll join with her to try to end the Ukraine war, to try to stop a war with China and anywhere else. But here's what she has to say about Kamala being endorsed by Dick Cheney. Here's what she said.
I have a very simple message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. And so it's interesting because if you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, oh, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. But we look at who she says, her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement. And we got military veterans in the House. Got a lot of you who probably served in the Middle East like I did. And so it sickened me, Tucker, to read those words today, both from Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, and Kamala Harris, because we have people who we care very much about who were killed in those wars because of Dick Cheney.
His lies.
Kamala Harris has told us all we need to know about what kind of commander-in-chief she would be. And I don't know about you, but I would not trust her for a moment with the lives of my brothers and sisters in uniform.
So let's remember that Hillary Clinton said she was a Russian asset as she's an officer serving in the military. So all this reverence that the Democrats pretend to have for the military or their Gold Star families, right? That's all bullshit. Because here's someone who's serving in those illegal wars that they all started and championed, and they'll slander her for telling the truth about them. You don't get slandered for lying. You get put in prison for lying and slandered for telling the truth. Julian Assange wasn't in jail because he lied about the military-industrial complex. He was in jail because he told the truth about our torturous wars and our illegal wars of aggression and our imperialism. That's what gets you in trouble. Tucker Carlson didn't get fired from Fox News because he was lying about Ukraine and Syria or COVID. He got fired because he was telling the truth about those things. And when he brought, and the January 6th, what happened, he told the truth about that. And that was it. And then when he brought on Bobby Kennedy to tell you the truth about COVID, and that was it. They were done. They got rid of him. So again, Tucker Carlson didn't get fired when he was on the wrong side of the Iraq war, repeating lies about the Iraq war. He got fired when he started telling the truth about the Ukraine war, when he started telling the truth about the Syrian war, when he started telling the truth about the military-industrial complex and how both parties are beholden to the same thing. That's what happens. And so that's what happened with Tulsi Gabbard. When she told the truth about the Syrian war and she told the truth about Russiagate, what happened? She gets smeared immediately. And they called her a Russian.
Turn with Tucker.
Go ahead. What's that?
One of his children was a Ron Paul fan and put him onto that. And that was kind of the period, because you're right. Like, he did promote the rhetoric about Iraq and wants to nuke Iran and all this silly stuff. But when he got the right opinions in front of him, he completely changed. And he was right on all those other things about Syria, for example, Ukraine, COVID, J6. We all knew there's no way he's still going to be on Fox near November. There's no way they're going to let Tucker have that channel during the election, because he's just telling too much of the truth. But he landed on his feet because he went right to X, and his videos are still seen by millions of people. So they start going after Elon Musk. Oh, there's Bill Maher. Let's see what that cretin has to say.
And so they're going after Elon Musk, even though he's 90% on board with the billionaire agenda. He can't go rogue even a little. He allows a little bit of free speech on Twitter, and that's too much for them. They can't lose control of the narrative, because if the establishment loses control of the narrative, they have to start disappearing people. And they'll do that too, but it's harder. So I want to show you this. So Bill Maher, now we rip Bill Maher a lot. In fact, I have a show called Rumble Time that is... I'm hoping to make it popular enough that it gets enough funding to do it in a real studio, a soundstage, so it looks like a real TV show, and we can compete with them. Right now, we're doing it at a theater at Two Roads Theater. We did the first one in Chicago. That was a lot of fun at the Ramova Theater. That was nice. We sold it out. It was like a 700-seat theater. Everybody's excited about this show. And I just wanted to get popular enough so that we get the funding to do it in a soundstage like he gets to do it. But so we rip him a lot because he's out of touch, right? He repeats a lot of neocon talking points. He doesn't really understand, but he's on the right side of certain things. Like he was better on COVID than most people in the media. He talks about bodily He talks about bodily autonomy, right? But no one else did. So I appreciate. So again, I'll join with anybody to do good and nobody to do bad. And now Bill Maher, who's been on the wrong side of a lot of things, certainly the Israeli war. Or Israel-Palestine bombing. I don't really call it a war. But here he gets on the right side of this. People have been smearing Cheryl Hines, who I know Cheryl Hines personally. We had the same agent when I first came to Los Angeles. And she truly is a sweetheart of a person. And she's got a lot of talent. And she's also loyal, which is something a lot of people don't have today. So Bill Maher, so she got smeared recently. People are coming out smearing her because her husband is now supporting Trump for president because they agree on certain things. Just like he compared it, Bobby Kennedy compared it to Lincoln when Lincoln had people in his cabinet from the other party and people who didn't agree with him. And that's what Bobby says is going to happen in Trump's new term if he becomes president, that they disagree on certain things and they're going to keep disagreeing on it publicly. But on the places where they agree, they're going to come together. Well, that was a bridge too far for that guy Bradley Whitford. Do you remember him? What a douchebag. And so anyway, Bill Maher talks about it and he gets it right. And so I want to, I'm first to criticize Bill when he gets it wrong, but he gets it right and he does it in a great way. And so I want to just say, tip of the hat for him for doing this. Let's watch.
A couple of weeks ago, Bobby Kennedy, scion of the most storied dynasty in Democratic Party history, dropped out of the presidential race and threw his support not to the Democrat, but to Trump. And everyone all at once said the same thing. Bobby Kennedy did something weird? A Kennedy in league with a Republican? Why, that's like ordering white wine with Bear. Now look, I like Bobby and always will. And there are things he has been right about that no one else would touch. But yes, I also think he's weird. I couldn't support him for president. His wife is Cheryl Hines, who Larry David was quoted as describing as the best person I've ever met, the one person in Hollywood who doesn't have a single enemy. Well, now she does. Because she didn't throw her husband under the bus when her husband made a decision about something which she's made plain she disagrees with, but that didn't satisfy the obnoxious posers on the aforementioned far left. Thousands tweet screamed at Cheryl things like, "How do you live with yourself? Do better. I can't even enjoy the episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm with you in them anymore. It's no wonder Larry divorced you." Yeah, that's a character on TV, but okay. The tweet that got the most attention was from actor Bradley Whitford, who wrote, "Hey, Cheryl Hines, way to stay silent while your lunatic husband throws his support behind the adjudicated rapist who brags about stripping women of their fundamental rights. Gutsy. Great example for the kids, profiling courage." Yeah, well, you know what I think is not gutsy? Mansplaining to a woman, but of course not to her face. How she should sacrifice her marriage. Also, you could read something on Twitter that met with your approval. You want to know why I have a bug up my ass about the left more than I used to? It's shit like this. There's an ugliness they never used to have. The liberals I grew up respecting, none of them are like this. Going after the wife, even the mafia doesn't do that. There's a lot of people these days who I call liberals in theory. In theory, they hate bullying. Terrible. In practice, their attitude is, it's not bullying when I stick your head in the toilet. In theory, liberals are compassionate. In practice, This guy can't even understand one of the most basic dilemmas common to all humans, that when you're married, sometimes you have to swallow some shit.
So I say, again, I'll say good on Bill Maher, but watching Bill Maher get something right, it's like being a nature photographer and spending all those days and weeks and months just standing there waiting to get that one shot of an eagle snatching a fish from the lake. You know, you have to sit there forever, but it does happen. It happened. And just let it soak in, because that's magical that he was on the right side of this issue. So he must know Cheryl Hines himself, because he must know that she's a wonderful person, and it must have woken him up to that. But I want to play. I want to go over something. He still even in this video, he still bothered me, and I'm going to show you the part that he bothered me. Right. So
a couple of weeks ago, Bobby Kennedy, scion of the most storied dynasty in Democratic Party history, dropped out of the presidential race and threw his support not to the Democrat, but to Trump. And everyone all at once said the same thing. Bobby Kennedy did something weird?
Okay. What exactly are Bobby Kennedy's weirds that he's talking about? There's the bear story. Okay. Gotcha. That's a little weird. But not if you hear the whole story. Is it as weird as Obama's personal chef drowning in a naked paddleboarding accident in 4 feet of water? Naked? Debatable. But maybe they're right. Maybe they're talking about his 100% accurate book that he wrote about Fauci. Is that it? His 100% accurate book about Fauci? Because if there was anything in there that wasn't true, they would have sued him, and nobody has sued him. And it's not weird that he falls in line with the establishment on Israel, because everybody else in the establishment falls in line. So that can't be weird. Is it his voice? I guess it's his voice is pretty bad, but his body's unbelievable for a 70-year-old guy.
Hypocrisy.
And then he says, "Oh, Kennedy's in league with a Republican." Oh, do you know that Dick Cheney just endorsed Kamala Harris, and she is honored to have his endorsement?
Is it as weird as Cheney shooting his lawyer in the face with birdshot?
How about that? And then his lawyer apologizing to Dick Cheney for him getting shot in the face by Dick Cheney. Is that weird?
Is it as weird as Hunter Biden getting foot jobs while he does from hookers while he's doing 10% for the big guy? Is him and Devin Archer and Chris Hines working for the Chinese communists? That's a little weird.
Is it that weird? Is it right? Is it as weird as 50 CIA agents lying and saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was CIA propaganda? Is it as weird as that? Is it 51. As weird as Dick Cheney lying us into an illegal war? Is it as weird as that? Is it as weird as Barack Obama wrecking Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa, and turning it into a failed state while polluting their water, which was considered the 8th wonder of the world because Gaddafi had taken water to deserts and turned it into farmland, and we bombed it with depleted uranium. So now it's all contaminated. Is it as weird as that? Now there's slave states in Libya. Is it as weird as that?
They made slavery great again in North Africa. It can't be as weird as the Pelosi's.
Is it as weird as the Pelosi's? Is it as weird
Greatest day trader ever?
Is it as weird as right? She's the best stock trader in the world. Is it that kind of weird?
With a hammer and your husband in his underwear.
Is it as weird as 20 years of Afghanistan war and being lied to about it? Is it as weird as repealing habeas corpus, which is what Barack Obama did? Is it as weird as Barack Obama making it legal for the CIA to now propagandize their own people, which is what he also did? What else is weird?
Is it as weird as the NIH using EcoHealth as an intermediary to do gain-of-function research in Wuhan and then parsing words and denying about it and releasing the virus on the whole world that locked it down for 2 years? That's pretty weird.
Is it weird? Yeah. Is it weird? Is it weird about saying that if you said that Dr. Fauci funding the gain-of-function research that most likely led to the COVID virus being released and starting a global pandemic, which they say killed millions and millions of people? Is it that kind of weird?
Is it as weird as using Purple Shovel as an intermediary to fund al-Nusra Front and Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria while you're condemning them at the same time?
Is it as weird as the Pentagon and the CIA funding different terrorist groups in Syria that end up fighting each other? Is it weird like that? Is it weird like lying about a gas attack in Syria so you can have more military intervention in a country that has a... Is it as weird as the United States occupying a third of Syria right now illegally? And which third is that? The oil. Is it weird like that?
Is it as weird as the Nord Stream pipeline blowing itself up?
Is it as weird
on the Russians?
Is it as weird as the Nord Stream pipeline being blown up by itself, or the Russians blowing up their own pipeline, which was an economic lifeline for that country? Is it that kind of weird? Is it weird?
As weird
like
as Epstein killing himself in prison?
Is
and the
it
cameras
weird
didn't
like
work
that?
And the guards
Yeah.
were asleep and the doors are open?
Is it that? Is it weird like the CIA getting in bed with far right-wing Nazis and the Azov Battalion to overthrow a democratically elected government in Ukraine? Is it weird like that? What kind of weird things are you talking about with Bobby Kennedy?
Balls in your court, Bill Maher.
Anyway, the point of this segment was good tip of the hat to Bill Maher. Okay, over to Steph.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jimmy. All right, here we go. And Janice, thank you so much, and Janice. KY Colonel, Jimmy, you will be imprisoned with Trump if Trump loses. Election fraud is real. KY, thank you, KY. Let's go here. Anarchist Prison Memoirs, thank you so much. Web Angel, thank you very much. Dustin Lee, Jimmy had me yelling goal when he stood up for himself. Thank you, Dustin Lee. Hold on, stop that. Jimmy, can you please ask Bill Maher to tell his friends to lay off the multiculturalism and immigration for the rest of us? I both, yes, thank you. Blunt Sis, thank you so much. Jimmy did everything right. Steph, your comment was on point. Love ya. We'll love right back at you, Blunt Sis. That's a nice comment. EF Sow, more of a cult, Democrats or Scientology? More of a cult, Democrats or Scientology? F Sow. I think it's both. I don't think it's either or. I think they're both. If Jimmy thinks Mossad targeted his computer, you should have Richard Lighthouse from targetedjustice.com. They're a group of lawyers that can help.
Well, somebody did. It wasn't a person. So it was either the Mossad or it was the CIA or the FBI, or maybe it was intelligence groups in Ukraine, but they used Pegasus to get into my computer and my phone. And that cost millions of dollars to get that technology. So that's what my
NSO.
What's that?
Maxwell's sisters are part of that spy ring. So the NSO is Israeli software that is built off Pegasus. They stole that tech from the Pentagon.
Okay.
All right.
That's a long story.
Okay, here, let me...
Oh, back to Jimmy.
So they're doing Russiagate again, and I want to they're doing it for the election. And I want to remind people that the country that has the biggest influence on our elections is not Russia. It's not China. It's Israel. AIPAC just spent $20 million to oust 2 progressive lawmakers, and Israel was caught running a $2 million influence campaign, but you'll never hear Russiagate stenographers utter a peep of protest. Here it is. Israel secretly targets U.S. lawmakers with influence campaign on Gaza war. Israel's Ministry of Diaspora Affairs ordered the operation, which used fake social media accounts urging U.S. lawmakers to fund Israel's military, according to officials and documents about the effort. So I just want to, why do I bring that up? Is because they don't want you to know this. Who's they? The establishment, the military-industrial complex, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and Wall Street, the same people. Here's what they want you to pay attention to. Here's a tool of the military-industrial complex. That's where they get their money. They get their money from banks, Wall Street, Big Pharma, and the military-industrial complex at MSNBC. And listen to what he's going to say. Breaking news. Watch this.
Breaking news. The Biden administration taking a series of actions to target what they allege are attempts by Russian-backed actors to manipulate public opinion here in the U.S. ahead of the presidential election, according to 2 senior U.S. officials. Joining us now is NBC's Ken Delanian. Ken, what more?
Now, I just want to remind everybody, Ryan, I'm sure you know who this guy is. This guy is a CIA asset. Jimmy, come on. Why are you making wild accusations? He literally got fired from the LA Times because the LA Times found out that he would, before he filed his stories, he would first send them to the CIA, and then the CIA would make their corrections, and then he would file his stories. He was working for the CIA. He probably still is. I don't know that for sure. But, of course, if you get caught lying for the establishment, you think he'd be out of a job. He got caught lying and working with the CIA. He's supposed to be a journalist. No, he got promoted to on-air talent over at NBC.
Work for WAPO.
He's getting a bigger salary than he's ever gotten in his life. And so they go to this guy to talk about Russiagate. Why do you think they go to this guy who's already been caught with a history of working with the CIA? Because Russiagate came from the CIA. So he's their guy. Right. So what does he say about it?
We learned.
Jose, this is being described by our sources as a whole of government.
Who are your sources? Our sources.
Our sources.
You mean your sources at the CIA, who you got caught working with? Okay, they're sources. Here we go. They're sources.
This is being described by our sources as a whole of government action designed to target Russian propaganda and disinformation aimed at interfering in the 2024 election. It is said to include sanctions by the Treasury Department, law enforcement action by the Justice Department, and one of the focuses is on RT, formerly known as Russia Today, that network of Russian government-funded English language websites and television platforms that...
By the way, everybody RT used to be just as respected as PBS or the BBC. You know who used to have a show on there? Jesse Ventura used to have a show on RT. The governor of Minnesota, the Navy SEAL, the decorated veteran. Yeah, Jesse Ventura. You know who else? Dennis Miller, the George Bush and Dick Cheney's lapdog. He used to have a show on RT. That guy. Yeah. You know who else? Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist for the New York Times, used to have a show where he was Emmy nominated on RT. You know who else? Ed Schultz, the guy who had a show for a decade on MSNBC. He also had a show on RT. That guy Sanchez, who had a show on CNN. He had a show over everybody used to have a show on RT until the military-industrial complex realized they need another enemy. They need an enemy, and they made it into Russia. And so after that, then it was bad. I mean, I have pictures of George Bush and Putin fishing together. And George Bush said he looked into Putin's his soul, and he saw he was a good man. Do you remember those? Those things are all get memory hold. It was supposed to be the Great Reset with Russia. We were going to be working together with Russia. That's why there's all those American corporations in Russia. But anyway, I just want to remind you what RT was. So that now they make RT out to be this horrible thing.
Add to that a little bit too.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I used to do interviews with whoever. I quit doing them on American networks because they always would cut up what I said and twist it around and stuff. But when there's two networks, they don't do a pre-interview. Like a lot of these networks, they interview you and then they interview you. They want to see what you're going to say, and then they interview you again. RT and Press TV have never done that. And so I used to talk on RT, and I interviewed Peter Lavelle a few times, who runs Crosstalk on RT, good guy. They never censored what I said and never twisted my words. And I just got up there and said the same stuff I say on my own show. They didn't encourage me. They didn't pay me either, by the way, not supposed to. They're one of the most honest networks I've ever done interviews with. They just come and say, here's the topic, about this, usually something to do with Asia, whatever, and then just go. And they didn't censor it at all. I cannot say that about CNN or MSNBC or any of the rest of them.
So I had CNN want to include me in a documentary when I was in Chicago at the convention, and I said, no, thanks.
CBS called me a Holocaust denier.
CNN called me a conspiracy theorist over the Syrian gas attacks. I was right about that. I was proven right by the OPCW whistleblowers. But back to this propaganda piece by Ken Delinian over at NBC News.
Flagged all the way back in 2017 by the U.S. intelligence community as a vehicle for Russian disinformation and election interference.
So it's been flagged by the U.S. intelligence community all the way back in 2017 when they were doing that fake conspiracy theory called Russiagate. And then they got caught lying about Hunter Biden's laptop. You know, the most unreliable liars in the world. You mean those people? Okay.
And at that time, the Justice Department required RT to register as a foreign agent. It remains to be seen exactly what actions the U.S. will take against RT today, but this does appear to represent an escalation in the efforts to try to purge the system of Russian propaganda and disinformation. What's interesting is that, look, the U.S. has been saying all along that not only Russia, but Iran and China, but particularly Russia, has been consistently trying to manipulate American public opinion with disinformation on social media platforms, use of fake accounts, and through RT, through its state-sponsored platforms, as they did in 2016. The difference now is that there are mechanisms in place, particularly on the social media platforms, to try to stop and flag fake accounts before the influence operations spread too widely.
Unless those fake accounts are operated by Israel.
Yeah, they edit Wikipedia. Is it the Israeli? I'd like to know how much money they're getting, not only from AIPAC, but DMFI and UDP, because those groups give more than AIPAC does, and it's all the same people.
You guess who else used to have a show on RT? Larry King.
Yeah.
Larry King had a show on RT. You know who else? William Shatner. Okay, here we go.
So it remains to be seen what impact this Russian disinformation is having. But nonetheless, this is a stance by the Biden administration to say, if you're violating U.S. laws and policies, we're going to come after you. And Attorney General Merrick Garland is expected to chair a meeting of the government's election task force today, this afternoon, with FBI Director Chris Wray and other officials. And he may have public comments to make about this effort at that time, Jose.
So what this actually is this isn't Russia trying to manipulate U.S. opinion ahead of the election. This is the Biden administration, the deep state, corporate media trying to manipulate U.S. opinion ahead of this election. That's what this is exactly like when I just had Dr. Epstein on, who proved that Google is manipulating all their Google searches and everything to favor Kamala Harris. That's exactly what's happening here. So the whole establishment is in bed doing it. It's not just Google, which is what Epstein thought, I guess.
Google's saying we can't allow 2020 to be another 2016.
That's right.
Dr. Epstein was right on that. But that's it.
Yeah. Here's Aaron Mate says the translation of this that says Biden administration to hit Russia with sanctions for trying to manipulate U.S. opinion ahead of the election. He says translation, just as in 2016, Trump-Russia collusion, Russian interference, and in 2020, Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation, Russian bounties on Afghan. Remember that bullshit story?
Oh, yeah.
Biden administration to activate Russiagate propaganda to manipulate the United States opinion ahead of the 2024 election. That's actually what's happening. That's why I have a show, and that's why I don't have a show on MSNBC, CNN, or Fox. I have a show here because I debunk those things. That's why my Wikipedia page looks like it does, because I debunk their conspiracy theories, and they have to try to discredit me. That's the whole point of Wikipedia, which is edited by the CIA, the FBI, and the MI6. That's who actually edits Wikipedia, which is why I'm not allowed to add anything to my own page.
Yeah.
I'm
starting to think they ought to ask him about his investments in Rosemont Sentica. He's deeply tied to Hunter Biden's corporations. He had 21 million reasons why to go after Trump.
Chris Wray, you mean the head of the FBI? You mean the head of the? Yeah. Is that who you're talking about?
He did Sidnef too.
He has
It's a free film. It's called The Biden Crime Syndicate. That gets all into that. That's on Rumble too.
I'm starting to think.
Call it Cornpop's Revenge.
Oh, okay, fantastic! Everybody should check that out. I'll check that out. I'm starting to think that Russia is just like a Disneyland like theme park that the Democrats built, so they can blame everything wrong in America on Russia, and Donald Trump is their Mickey Mouse. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and if you defend it at all, like, well, you're a Putin show, and it's kind of like what Epstein was doing to you, and earlier in the show, like if you oppose the war in Iraq. That doesn't mean you love Saddam.
That's right.
It just means that don't think they have these weapons. We have no business being there. You're going to murder a lot of people over nothing. But it's like, no, if you oppose this war between Russia and Ukraine, then you love Putin and everything he's ever done. Not at all. But the nuance is dead. And this sort of because they amplify the extremes on purpose. They want to make the other side look ridiculous, so they put the camera on the goofiest one they can find.
And so right on schedule, you have the mainstream media saying that the Biden administration is weeding out Russian disinformation to try to manipulate the election. Just right on schedule, all of a sudden you hear this story. The U.S. Department of Justice alleges that Tenet Media, which has Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin on its roster, received $10 million from the Russian government to publish content as part of a Russian influence operation. Tenet is owned and controlled by Lauren Chen, who is affiliated with Turning Point USA and her husband, Liam Donovan. So...
And then they cancel her YouTube.
And so they cancel her YouTube. So this is an allegation. This is an allegation by the U.S. Department of Justice, which is now doing the criminal justice system in the United States, doing 4 fake prosecutions of Donald Trump right now. And so
their wording is off too, because it's not from the Russian government. It's from 2 Russian individuals they assume work for the Russian government.
So that's the great thing about allegations, Ryan, is that you don't need any proof at all to seed the idea in people's heads. Because that's all this is. This should be met with the same amount of veracity as when the same 50 CIA people said that Hunter's laptop was Russian disinformation. So they're saying that the Russian government was paying Lauren Chen. And you're saying, Ryan, that you have information that it wasn't the Russian government?
Well, it's not proven that it's the Russian government. What they've said, actually, they named these 2 people who are of Russian ethnicity, but that doesn't mean they're working for the Russian government. And if you look at what Tim Pool and Rubin and Johnson said, they're not really Russia shills. They're just saying the same stuff they've always said. But they do cut to commercials with Ben Shapiro hawking stuff for the Israelis.
I'm going to show you
definitely
that.
Zionists. All those people are pro-Israel, except for Laura Chen, who's the one that gets canceled.
That's right. Laura Chen is so they were paying Dave Rubin $400,000 a month, $100,000 a year to do a video a week. I mean, $100,000 a week for a video. So here is most likely a big problem for them. she's against AIPAC and Israel. Mm-hmm. She says AIPAC is a lobbying organization that represents a foreign nation and funds or targets members of Congress based on their loyalty to said foreign nation. If you support that, just say it. So she said that in June of 2024. And now she's being charged with that very thing for not registering as a foreign agent.
They implement FARA on RT and her. But not on AIPAC or the ADL or any of the Israeli Friends and any of that stuff. Not UDP, not DMFI.
So there's a huge double standard happening here. And here's somebody made this graph, who's this artist, but it says stop. So who's pointing the figure? The feds, the media, which is owned by the military-industrial complex, and there's AIPAC with $100 million. Just in 2024, they've spent alone.
Again, it's a lot more than $100 million. That's just AIPAC. You have to understand the affiliate organizations that aren't the flagship brand name donate far more money than AIPAC does. The United Democracy Project was giving 9 times as much money as AIPAC to these candidates. So when you see an AIPAC tracker, like that is a fraction of the money that's coming from Israeli partisans into their coffers. And unfortunately, and there's a great book on this called Big Israel by Grant F. Smith, even better than Mersheimer's book, The Lobby, that breaks it all down. But you would need someone in the media to kind of educate people past just AIPAC and the ADL. It's so much deeper and so much worse than that.
So first of all, look at this. So that's $100 million from AIPAC. Wouldn't it be amazing if the United States had that much money? Oh, wait a minute. That is Americans' money. Isn't that interesting? We give
220 billion on Ukraine.
That's right. So Brett Weinstein caught this.
That went back through Sam Bankman-Fried's circuit to the DNC.
So it's all a big money laundering scheme. We give foreign aid to Israel. Israel then takes some of that money, like $100 million, and uses it to bribe our lawmakers, to give them more money, so they can take more money and bribe more of our law. So we'll fund what they're doing in Palestine right now, which a lot of people.
Ice cream cone is the biggest ROI ever. They get billions of dollars. They spend a fraction of that to bribe for more money. And then that's how they pay for all their operations. And it's all because we refuse to register their lobbying groups as foreign assets, even though they definitely are foreign agents. And again, FARA should be implemented on these groups. But they'll say, we're not an Israeli group, we're a Jewish group. It's like,
yes.
The I in AIPAC is Israel.
Well, did you see this, Brian? Brett Weinstein caught this. He said, anyone else notice that Nina Jankowicz, the disgraced would-be minister of truth, remember her?
Yeah, she sang Mary Poppins or
She
something.
was literally supposed to be the minister of truth, and she was going to oversee censoring people on social media by the government. Well, she pops up in Tenet Media's story. Watch this. So Russia secretly worms its way into America's conservative media. Federal prosecutors say Russia paid an American media company to push pro-Kremlin messages from social media influencers, including Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin. Now, I've talked to people who work at those shows, and they assure me that they've never done any pro-Putin propaganda. I don't watch the shows, but I've had people. So it sounds like garbage to me.
The thing is, even if people have donated the money to Lauren's organization, if that money doesn't come with the condition of we'll pay you this if you say X, Y, and Z about Russia, then you're not lobbying for Russia. And the fact that like every single pundit that won't say anything negative about Israel, even the mass media is saying, well, they didn't know, they received it, but we weren't even aware of it. But anybody that does criticize Israel doesn't get that. They just get their YouTube removed during the accusation phase. And what will happen is by the time this gets debunked, the election's already passed.
That's right.
So they're using Russia as an excuse to get rid of conservative pundits that are against Israel.
So here's Nina Jankowicz. She's a co-founder of the American Sunlight Project, an advocacy group in Washington that fights disinformation online, said that this is a classic case of information laundering. So she's the propagandist. She works for the government. She works for the military-industrial complex. She works for Big Pharma, for Wall Street. She's the liar. The biggest liars are always the government, next the corporate media, and then a distant third, randos on Twitter and YouTube, okay? So she works for the biggest liars. The Russia and other foreign actors have used it for decades to obscure the source of influence operation. Again, the biggest influencing outside country in America is Israel. In this case, they chose influencers who are already engaging in rage bait, exploiting the pre-existing fissures in our society for clicks. Holy shit.
Didn't Joe Biden invite a bunch of TikTokers to the White House to espouse propaganda for him?
That's exactly what he did. He did the same thing at the Democratic National Convention. They made passes available to hundreds of influencers, not journalists, influencers. Here, let me finish. It's lamentable that these influencers conducted so little due diligence, Jankowicz said, when something seems too good to be true. In this case, getting paid $100,000 per video for content you already making, it probably is. You know, there's lots of billionaires who have lots of money. I've been offered lots of money by crazy money like that. And it's not crazy to think that billionaires have that kind of money to throw along. Are you kidding me? Of course they do. I don't think it's crazy anyway. But here's what Riverman says. He says, God, this is so obvious. Two possibilities. Russia paid ridiculous amounts, way over market, for videos that those guys were already making. The DC blob paid these amounts to create a pretext for censoring viewpoints they don't like.
Yep.
Miguel Maruso says, the entire Tenet Media thing stinks of an op from beginning to end. I doubt a single actual Russian was even involved. We'll find out. We're going to find out. Woolfolk says the feds will throw around big money to go after their enemies. Remember when the FBI offered Christopher Steele $1 million if he could verify anything in his dossier? And he couldn't. It was all made up. They offered him $1 million. Just like that. Really?
Yep.
But giving someone $100,000 for a video who's already wildly popular. All those guys are
And
wildly
already
popular.
wealthy.
Those guys are already wealthy, way wealthy. It's not like Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, those guys make bank without anybody giving them extra $100,000 a week. So this is what you can't make up. Here is Ben Shapiro, who's a shill for Israel. He's interviewing Tim Pool, and watch what they do. So if you think that Russia should be a foreign agent and that you shouldn't take money from, watch what he does.
It's frustrating to get entangled in whatever it is she's accused of being involved in.
So he's literally interviewing Tim Pool about this scandal that I'm sure Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson had no idea. They were told that money was coming from a French billionaire. That's what they were told by Lauren Chen. Now, is there a Russian billionaire involved? We're going to find out. But Ben Shapiro brings him on to talk about it, and watch what he does right in the middle.
It's frustrating to get entangled in whatever it is she's accused of being involved in.
Folks, our friends in Israel need our help now more than ever. If you're looking for a tangible way to support the Holy Land, you need to check out Artsa Box. Artsa brings the essence of Israel right to your doorstep. Every 3 months, you receive a carefully curated...
So there he is. Lunatics.
That's right. I predict...
You can clear this up real fast. Hey, Tim, did they ever say you have to say this about Russia as a condition of accepting this money? Because if not, like you're just doing your show and you're getting some extra money, then that's not a lobby for Russia. Duh.
I predict Ben Shapiro is about 2 weeks away from being the new ShamWow guy. How about that?
Ben aside Shapiro. He's like,
here's what this guy says. I just want to read this. Because Ben Shapiro, while in the middle of criticizing Tim Pool for taking Russian money, advertises for Israel. You cannot make this up. A huge unverified and unproven scandal has erupted with tenant media, Lauren Chen and associates, such as Tim Pool. This was Russian money funding content with a purpose of Russian influence in American politics. Putting that issue aside, we have Shapiro doing the exact same thing he's criticizing others of doing. Why is it that every country has to register under FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, but Israel doesn't? Why are 95% of our elected politicians, Democrat and Republican, funded by AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, without being held accountable? Our politics is massively influenced by actors, Israel and China, that is much more significant than Russia, which has not been confirmed and it's only been alleged. Individuals such as Ben Shapiro are either completely blind or arrogant enough to display their foreign allegiance, knowing that they won't face consequences. Anything else you'd like to say about this?
Well said. I'll just say again, you got to look at UDP, not just AIPAC. Like if you go through their top donors, for example, like Jan Koum, the founder of WhatsApp, Ukrainian Jewish billionaire, by the way, he gives more to UDP than he does to AIPAC. Jonathan Jacobson gave $2,500,000 to UDP. He only gave $10,000 to AIPAC. David Zellick, same thing. He and his wife both gave $453,800 to AIPAC. But they gave $2 million to UDP. And you can go down this list, Paul Singer, Bernard Marcus, all of that, Haim Saban, the classic kind of Zionists. They always give more money to the affiliates than they do to AIPAC. So what you're seeing when you look at AIPAC is the tip of the iceberg, because it's always worse than that. But yeah, the point otherwise is solid. Like, yeah, everyone else is registered under FARA except the one that spies on the White House with stingrays, that stole the first strike plans with Jonathan Pollard, that physically took uranium from the United States, that celebrated 9/11 and followed around the hijackers with the moving companies and Ornette Livingston and Dominic Suter and the rest of it. The people that lied about WMDs, because the origin of those lies came from the Israelis. The ones that lied about Syria, the ones that constantly interfering in U.S. elections. Everybody goes to AIPAC and kisses the ring, kisses the wall. They're genociding people in Gaza. We never would have been involved in any of these wars in the Middle East if it wasn't for Israel. It's the Israelis that got 77% of their oil after the Iraq war, more than 3/4 of their oil came from the Kurdish annexed regions in Iraq after the war, not America. You're not even fighting for American interests. You're doing things for the Israelis. They own the United States media. They won't even mention the crimes that are happening that are on film. They're raping prisoners. They just today rehashed this story about the Hannibal Directive with the other dancing Israelis at the music festival. And it's just, they're gunned down. And people came out with this story ages ago. Hamas did not possess weapons that could incinerate automobiles like that. Now we know 28 Apache helicopters went in and leveled that area. A weapon given to them by the United States, named after a group that the U.S. genocided itself, the Apaches.
I wanted to cover that story today, but we're desperately out of time to cover that story. I'll cover it tomorrow. Exactly what I wanted to cover it with you, because you know more about it than anybody. But yeah, it's been again now. ABC media in Australia is reporting that it was the Israeli Apache helicopters that slaughtered a lot of those people on October 7th because of the Hannibal Directive. Gray Zone was on top of that story immediately, and they were slandered by the establishment media left and right for reporting that
too.
That's and Mondoweiss. And so again, you don't get in trouble for lying; you get in trouble for telling the truth.
And myself and Martin Sicily and stuff were there. There's also, we had witnesses of the kibbutzes that were fired on by tanks. And the survivors were saying, yeah, there's us, like 6 Hamas and 20 others. They fired. We were the only 2 survivors. It wasn't just the helicopters. This was common sense. And yeah, the Gray Zone, Mondo Weiss came out with it. Haaretz reported it in June, if you remember.
Yeah.
And so now ABC Australia has come out with it. Perfectly timed with the 6 dead hostages and 500,000 people protesting in Tel Aviv. And it's odd to be like, oh, that is what you protest about. And the corruption and graft from Netanyahu and his cousin, by the way, it's involved with the syndicate in Romania and Madagascar. It's too long a story. But this is what they get mad about, not the ethnic cleansing of a population you put in a concentration camp to begin with and built a wall around them, guns pointed at them. No, that doesn't bother you. Like annexing land, literally moving into someone's living room and saying, this is mine, God gave it to me, that kind of mythological rationalization for genocide and terrorism, that doesn't bother him. But, you know, Netanyahu taking too much power from the courts, that can't stand. You know, and now they're finally on his ass about the hostages, which they should be. But damn, they killed over 1,000 in one day with the Hannibal Directive. They didn't even get to be a hostage for potential for an exchange, which would not occur if you had not arrested thousands of Palestinians without trial and threw them in your torture rape dungeons to begin with. But these are the kind of insane lunatics we call them, you know, God's chosen lunatics. Finkelstein calls it a lunatic state. That's the one receiving $4 billion every year from the United States, no matter what. Add another $50 billion this year, and weapons and so on. It's disgusting. And they're going to drag us into war with Iran. And I'm saying it now. I don't want it. It's not in U.S. interest. But whether it's Trump or Kamala, they're both on board with this. And so us in the alt media, you need to be vigilant and stand against this. Whatever BS they come out with, you know, if a stray rocket hits the dome of the rock, whatever it is, it's not going to be true.
Ryan Dawson, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure having you. I hope you come back soon. Everybody check out Ryan. Now you're on Rumble, right?
I'm on Rumble as Ryan Dawson, and I'm on
Twitter
as
at Ry
Liberty.
RY Liberty. At RY Liberty on Twitter. And he's got his own channel on Rumble. You do great work. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your insight. I hope we talk again soon.
It's been a catharsis to come on your show. Thank you so much, Jimmy. We're going to have to talk 9/11 one day.
I would love to. Would love to. Okay, buddy. All right.
Sounds good.
Over to Steph.
That was great. That was a great interview. Thank you so much, Ryan. Looking forward to having you back. All right. Jimmy, are you thinking at all to talk about the debate tomorrow? Do you think you're going to live stream tomorrow?
Yeah. What time is the debate tomorrow?
Let's see. Let me know when you figure it out, what time the debate is. Right? All right. Couple reads? All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be wrapping up. Jimmy's going to do one more thing for the team, and then it looks like he's going to be talking about the debate tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I'll find out what time.
We're
by
going
the
to
time
find
you're
out what
done.
it is. Okay. So hey, come to me. So the mainstream media is unreliable. That's why you watch this show. It's dishonest. That's why you watch this show. How can you trust them when they're never ever told the truth about Russiagate, Julian Assange, Ukraine, Syria? Well, that's where our sponsor Ground News comes in. Ground News is an app and a website that gathers related articles from around the world in one place so you can compare the kind of coverage like the kind of that we do on this show. That's kind of like what we do on this show. We show you how, look at how they're covering it, and then we debunk it for you. Well, Ground News is very similar. Let's take a closer look at some of Ground News' coverage on President Trump's attempted assassination. Ground News gives me instant access to more than 700 articles reporting on it all over the world with context on each publication's political bias. Factuality based on how subjective or objective their language is, and even who is funding those people. So comparing the coverage is absolutely fascinating to me. Left-leaning USA Today and ABC News downplayed the shooting by writing that Trump was removed from the stage after loud noises startled him and rang out in the crowd. I wouldn't say USA is left-leaning. I'd say they're establishment-leaning.
Mm-hmm.
The Irish Times went as far as victim blaming, adding that the assassination attempt might even help him win the White House. Right-leaning outlets like the Daily Signal and the New York Post were really quick to call out liberal media's biased coverage, reporting that their bias was on full display. Unfortunately, moments like these can fuel the fires of misinformation, and very inaccurate narratives can spread like wildfire. The only way to combat this is to stay informed through really diverse news sources, something Ground News simplifies and excels at. I mean, they even created a blind spot feed to expose what the other side of the political spectrum isn't reporting on, freeing readers of any hidden agendas and political spins. With media bias just running crazy like it is, I can't recommend subscribing to Ground News enough to stay fully informed on topics with explosive headlines. So go to Ground News. Go to ground.news/JD with my link in the description to get 40% off their Vantage subscription, which will give you unlimited access to all their analysis and features. See through mainstream media narratives at Ground News. Let me give it to you again. Ground.news/JD. Subscribe this month through my link for 40% off unlimited access to Ground News. My link right there. Go there. You get 40% off. It's a great news site.
6 p.m.
Oh, so yeah, we'll do it.
6 p.m.
How long do you think it'll be? An hour?
There's no live audience. It's, I think it could be maybe max an hour and a half.
Okay.
All right.
We'll do it.
Yeah. So my team, hello team, we're going to do it tomorrow.
Voluntary. It's voluntary for my team. If they want to volunteer, they're welcome. Volunteer.
Right.
Hey, I believe in having a substantial percentage of my financial future, meaning my retirement fund, secured with gold and silver. You know that. You know what I think about what's going to happen with the stock market. And that's why I decided to partner up with Colonial Metals Group. They helped me set up a safe and secure self-directed IRA where I have access to my assets no matter what the stock market, or for that matter, what the government is doing. Let the team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you protect your family's future. We've put together a special offer for our audience. Click on the link in the description below or call a special 800 number and you're going to receive a safe and up to 10 grand in free silver. That's real. That could happen. Find out how that could happen. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Jimmy-Dore-show. So colonialmetalsgroup.com/Jimmy-Show. Dore-show, or call 888-910-1419. Okay. Oh, now Amra. I'm taking Amra. Hey, have you heard about the new superfood that seems almost too good to be true? It's got thousands upon thousands of 5-star reviews and life-changing testimonials from users. It's Amra colostrum. I'm actually taking it. Colostrum is the first nutrition we receive in life, and it's an exclusive source of all the essential nutrients we need in order to thrive. Armra colostrum is a proprietary concentrate of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 functional nutrients to strengthen your immune barriers against harmful particles from the environment that can trigger inflammation and make you sick. Colostrum has been known to strengthen immunity, ignite metabolism, fortify gut health, promote hair growth and skin radiance, and power fitness performance and recovery. Amra's grass-fed bovine colostrum concentrate strengthens all 4 layers of your gut wall, where 80% of your immune cells are housed, and activates cellular health for your resilience and recovery. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Get what? You get 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra, that's TRYARMRA.com/Jimmy, and enter Jimmy to get 15% off your first order. That's TRYARMRA.com/Jimmy. Oh. Hey, come see us live. We're going to be in Los Angeles, September 27th. Hang on, let me do it. Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show, September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. How's that?
All right, that's great. Big screen camera 4, please.
All right, let's read some of those super chats.
All right, you can go take a break, honey, because I've got like at least 15 minutes worth. All right? There's a lot of them. And I changed the reservation to 7:30. Okay, they're making their way out of the room, deciding what's priority. Good luck. Okay, I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. It's probably going to take me at least 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Hey, Siri, set an alarm to 7:15. And then I got to feed my doggy. All right, here we go. That's the show, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's just me reading. That's all it's going to be. All righty, here we go. Okay, so this is from Gage Ramsey. Thank you, Gage Ramsey. Diego de la Vega. Thank you, Diego de la Vega. Henry DeChazo. A little more than a year ago, you could tell the hurt, Jimmy, when Cornell said the same thing, but this time it was clear. Jimmy was pissed, rightly so. Dano, OMG Dano, thank you very much. Much appreciated for your generosity. Thanks, Dano. Julie and I absolutely love you. Can't wait until you come back to Ohio. Jimmy weaves the truth into comedy like nobody weaves the truth into comedy like Jimmy. Thanks. Railroad Mills, Julie and Railroad. Thank you so much. I tried to warn you, Jimmy, about Google at his show in 2017. I was first taken down in 2014, and I know how big media works with Google. P.S. I have a video of Saudi royalty starting fights and calling YouTubers poor. Nateflix. Thank you, Nateflix. All right, let's do this. Watch the documentary, The Real Story of January 6th, Part 1 and 2 yesterday at the Epoch. Is it epochtimes.com? Excellent. Recommended. Sandra, thank you for the recommendation. Roger, I prefer no studio audience because then I don't need a performance. I need them to talk policies. Besides a whole bunch of clapping and Yahoo, it takes up valuable time. I like microphones being cut off because I don't like interruptions. Cam finally came out with policy page. Rockfin is censorship free also, but you end the stream. Yes, we do. And then you added the ballotpedia.org California 2024 ballot propositions. Roger Meadows, you are terrific. Ellie, JD could have handled the riff better, but maybe he didn't want to. Did he owe Dr. Epstein a platform? The doctor should have some manners, or at least the good sense to not diss the host's menu or crap on the tablecloth. Reminds me of the time Tucker lost it when a dweeb did something similar to him on Fox. Ellie, thank you, Ellie. The problem is that the dude lacks a sense of humor. It's not his fault. Rugna. Hannah, sir, thank you very much for your generosity as usual. Snick Lip says, fuck Lincoln with a cactus. Woo, woo. Eugen, thank you, Eugen, much appreciated. M. Sancho, so Jimmy's not allowed to be angry or to push back? Good question. Let's see that James I think Jimmy handled Dr. Epstein just fine. Felt sorry for the doc. I think he's a man at the ends of his emotional rope. Well, that is, I think that's a strong observation, James. Steph, please don't put words in my mouth. I never said do better. You don't need to read my chat, but please don't read something I never wrote. No, Chris, I didn't say you said it. I said I'm tired of people suggesting do better. So thank you, Chris, again, for your generosity of spirit. Brian, thank you, Brian. Much appreciated. Jenny Cat, Jimmy is genuine and doesn't take shit off of people. No kidding, Jenny. Cage Ramsey paid for a super chat and didn't type anything. You're great. You don't need to damage control, Steph. Jimmy did nothing wrong. Keep up the good work. Gage, I appreciate that. Jimmy should do Jimmy. Steph should keep doing Kamala. Eric. Dano. Thank you, Dano, for being so nice. Epstein was nervous streaming next to Kurt because he looked like a Bosnian war criminal. Funny. I love you. Thank you for all that you do. Crinkle cut. In Seidenfeld, Jimmy's voice. Jimmy got a Jimmy. Brad Gilbert. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Hannister, thanks again for your generosity. Garblegox. Jimmy doesn't like to talk shit after an interview, so he talks shit during the interview. Garblegox. Thank you. Healing Tarzan, much appreciated for the recommendation. River DeVita, lefty news shows are so lame I am forced to watch right-wing news to get anything balanced, except Jimmy, of course. River. Stiff Richie, much appreciated for the idea and concepts and sending your thoughts. Much appreciated. Joybird, okay, let me see if I can read this. He also pussified NASCAR Bill Clinton. Winston Cup became Nextel Cup. Weird, huh? Jaybird, not Joybird. Thanks. Jaybird. Thank you, Jaybird. I will try to remember that. Cornpop. Cornpop, the better dude. Much appreciated. FSL. We need a Stephen Kamala and McRae as a Biden do a Democrat coup reenactment. That would be extremely hilarious. Funny concept. That's funny. If Kamala, FSL, if Kamala was really black, would wear her purse hot sauce? I learned that from Hillary. FSL. Courtney, I stand with Jimmy. I've been a fan of his for 2 years and he hasn't missed. Courtney. Nick. You'll read all the comments critical of Epstein, perhaps deserved more non-critical of the show. But none critical of the show. Nick, I hear your point there, Nick. I hear it, buddy. Let's see here. Booty Eater. Funny handle, thank you so much. Gajaba Mandaranga. I saw a funny comment saying Dick Cheney spends too much time on Google, so it brainwashed him into endorsing Kamala. LOL. Love from Australia. Okay. Thank you. 300 to go. Oh, and you know what? If you're adding super chats right now, I'll do my best to get to those. Or Rumble rants, rather. Oh, thank you. All right, I'll put that to the side so I can see it if something comes up. Ryan has all the receipts. Sherelle, how's it going, girl? More of a cult, Democrats or Scientology? F. Hassau. So sometimes I don't read names, okay? Seems like a lot of blank and blank followers out tonight. Amazing the BS they say about Jimmy, and lately blank and blank have been saying so much BS they should nickname him they should nickname him Diapers. Ryan, thank you, Ryan, for that generosity. Dot R, hey Dot, thumbs up back. Slain Hope at Slam Her Clam, no sweat. One camera. Yeah, I think so. I totally was going to just say that. Oh, shit. Somebody's overtime. How did that happen? All right. Slam Her Clam, no sweat. $5 is a small price to pay, even though I work hard for it. Something that's not only actively discouraged, but mocked by the NPCs. Non-professional class? Slain Hope? I don't know what that is. NPCs. I'll look it up. Jimmy Non-player characters? Really? Oh, okay. Cornpop, the bladder dude. Thank you so much. Hannister, much appreciated. Hannister again, much appreciated. Healing Tarzan. Really appreciate your recommendation, Healing Tarzan. Noster is like X. No, Noster is an X, like decentralized platform, zero censorship, 100% free speech forever. Similar to the Odyssey and BitChute at backstops for Rumble, there are open protocols like Nostr, N-O-S-T-R, and Mastodon as backstops to Twitter. Check out Nostr if you haven't yet on primal.net. Free speech or die. Nana, 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 nana. G.H.W. Bush served 5 terms, ran Reagan White House 1 term himself, and 2 with Cheney as puppet. Cheney was created by G.H.W. in the 70s under Ford and later found him run PNAC that became W's cabinet. Thomas Anonymous. Thank you, Thomas Anonymous. Bernie Sanders said that he doesn't agree with Hitler on any issues, but he respects the Fuhrer's dedication to democracy. Jack, that is nice. You never see Kamala Harris and Paula Abdul in the same place at the same time. Min Drunner. Thank you, Min. All right, I've got to open a bunch in a second. So, Goo81, much appreciated, Goo81. Botheus, is it possible that Netanyahu and Putin are playing us together? What might that look like? And can anyone explain to me how 600,000 dead Ukrainians helps the United States? It's tragic. Is it weird? Let's see, hold on. Is it weird that we refer to the tip of the iceberg of soldiers' death in the desert wars, but not the rest of the story of many more killing themselves when they get home? 1 deaths after service. 1 in 4 deaths after service. It's a tragedy. And didn't we reinstate the draft? William Shatner had a show on RT. Yes, thank you for that one. Love Jimmy. Next to historian Mr. Dawson, they balance each other and are on the same page. Thank you, Modern Muck. Let's see this one. Okay, I got to open a bunch right now. So this takes a while because it opens in a weird way. Okay. Throw that away. Okay, here we go. Julie and I absolutely love you, Railroad Mills. Thank you. I loved hearing that. I read that from Nate Flicks. The problem, Rugna says the problem is that dude lacked a sense of humor. It's not his fault. Candace Strike, thank you so much.
Well, what happened was, you come to me.
Yeah, go to Jimmy.
What happened was that guy, he got in over his head. He doesn't know he knows the technically what's happening, but he doesn't know why it's happening. He doesn't know why Google's doing what they're doing. And that's where I come in. And so then he doesn't realize that he's also a shitlib. That when he hears the things I said, he's like, oh, just like his own family. He then starts accusing people of being Trump supporters. And
well, I thought it was interesting. I have to say this, that he said that he didn't quite understand your show. And I think if somebody doesn't quite understand your show, then maybe, then ask or
ask a question.
Ask a question. Go, hey, like I'm getting mixed signals here, Jimmy. Can you clarify? But also, if you don't really understand a show, like I remember taking a great acting class with Brian Reese. Brian Reese. And Brian Reese would tell, when you're acting, they go, you're going to go and audition for a show. You better know what the show is. You got to know the tone of the show. You got to know the style of the show. You got to do your homework. And so my suggestion for anybody who's going to do a show ever, you should know what the show's about. You should understand the show. At a minimum, speak to the producer and get clarification if you don't understand the show. Because it just looked like it wasn't satisfying. All right, here we go. So the moral of today's story, boys and girls, is that you don't come into Jimmy Dore's house and shit in the floor, or he'll rub your nose in it. Love you, Jimmy. Don't ever change. C. Calloway, thank you, C. Calloway. Jack in a Box. Thank you, Jack in a Box. Bob303. Thank you very much, Bob303. Big Sides or BC Sides. Much appreciated. Twitter 10. Oh, well, now we know why all of Dr. E's research has failed to ever move the needle. One drop of the Trump derangement syndrome is all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Twitter. Data 12. Thank you, Data 12. Skinny Ribsy. Much appreciated, Skinny Ribsy. Behold, pale horse. I'd pay $5 to see Jimmy Dore body slam a disagreeable guest. Just saying, LOL. It may be good to have a code phrase like, and for those of you at home who don't know, or something to avoid interview mishaps. Heart 02. Thank you, Heart 02. Diego Frox. Thank you, Diego Frox. Much appreciated. NJFR. NJFR, thank you very much for your generosity. Roosevelt Media News, huge respect to Jimmy. Epstein insulted him and most of us listening. We are not flies. Thank you very much. We are not flies. Misha is so much more beautiful than Dana Bash. Joel Libretti. I can't believe Dr. Epstein can't get the big picture. To label someone as a pro-Trump for telling the truth is insanity. BK Stefan. Thank you, BK Stefan. Bummer what happened. Dr. Epstein is super knowledgeable, and that dude had his wife killed and feels like he isn't getting traction. Very frustrating. However, it's annoying when he's splitting hairs. We are not flies. Thank you. JD, you rock. I'm so glad you called out Dr. Epstein's BS. Keep up the good work. Hey, I'm a therapist and I can confidently report that psychologists are some of the most unself-aware, mealy-mouthed. Jenna Carey. Jimmy, this was an interesting question and maybe you want to answer it. I didn't feel good about my answer. And the question was, what is worse between 8 years of Clintonism or 4 years of Trumpism? Not being facetious, just genuinely curious.
What's the question?
So what is worse between 8 years of Clintonism or 4 years of Trumpism?
I'd have to do an analysis on that, but I can tell you, Bill Clinton put a lot of hurt on this country. He was the one who deregulated Wall Street, which led to the crash.
Oh, right.
In less than 10 years, he exploded the prison population. He did the crime bill. He did he demolished. He did NAFTA, which cut the legs out from underneath the unions. I mean, he did some really horrible things. That's for sure.
What's it?
I feel like Trump was just a regular Republican president. Bill Clinton did things Republicans couldn't do.
What is it? What's it called? The Siegel Act? What am I trying to remember?
Glass-Steagall.
And what was that one? What did that do?
That deregulated Wall Street, which led to the crash, which turned Wall Street into, instead of an investment place to go invest, it turned it into a casino.
And didn't Larry Summers, who thought of that, didn't he come out and apologize later about that? Glass-Steagall, I thought.
I don't. They still haven't reinstated it.
Right. No kidding.
I'll tell you that.
All right. Is it Sinklip? Thank you, Sinklip. Eugen, thank you so much. Dobther, thank you very much. Already know you're going to have Ryan back on again. James E. Clark, we don't need to defund the police. We need to end the drug war and reroute that funding towards violent crime and sex crime. Thank you, James E. PM Walker, I've got that evil voter demographic, Kamala Harris. Thank you for that. Cornpop the Batter Dude, much appreciated. Steve B. Even Henry Kissinger is voting for Kamala Harris. LOL. Cornpop the Batter Dude again. Thank you so much. Hannah, sir, thank you very much. Much appreciated. I don't know this guy, but he's so knowledgeable and chill. Could just use some more spirituality and out of the matrix naturalistic thinking, but otherwise great. Hannah, sir. Sandra. Jimmy, you're in for a crazy dream tonight. Will you be tweeting live during tomorrow's debate? Turns out not only tweeting, but reporting. Hannah, sir, people with unhealed childhoods can't help but project and do others that which they are or were a victim of themselves. Hannah, sir. Like people refuse to take an experimental vaccine starting with I've had all the vaccines. I find it's strange that people have to say I'm not voting for Trump to point out all of the injustices. Hannah, sir, Trump is serving his role of divider well. He's serving, would you say Kamala's serving her role as divider well, like Biden is too, and Obama is too? I think you could say that about a lot of people, Hannah, sir, whether or not it's true. For the record, after Dr. Epstein's interview, I donated Jimmy and Rumble Rats and to Tech Watch Project. Let's advance united. Diogo Fricks, thank you. Suffer no fools, keep fighting the good fight. Slain Hope. Also known as black and white thinking, a trauma response. Hannesser. KW Colonel, seems obvious that the uniparty deep state will punish hard anyone who exposes them. Trump, Musk, RFK Jr., Gabbard, MAGA, Folk, and even Jimmy Dore will see a jail cell if Trump loses. Vote for Trump. We're acting like abused spouses, children actually, because we are adult children of dysfunctional families. It really is all about the childhood trauma and its healing. It's so important, that healing, right, Hannah? It's our tropical rocket. If they destroy America, at least we don't have to pay taxes anymore. Come on. The government is owned by the proxies of the private bankers, the Federal Reserve, the IMF. We have to take back our currency and our government. Solidus. James E. Clark, nationalists need to unite to save our nation. Above all else, America first, America only, America always. Okay, it's 7:15. I still have probably 20 to read. Hannah, sir, that's why flat earth and viruses don't exist everywhere. Stiff Richie. Okay, so I know this won't get read, but
it's getting read.
Champion yourselves for free speech and censorship, and people are sending in their money, and you're censoring your comments. Why should anybody send you money? So, FYI, Stiff Richie, we get so many comments. Our model used to be that we would read all the comments. Now, we don't read the $1, $2, $3, $4 consistently. It's just too much, and it's overwhelming, especially when I'm not here and somebody else is reading them. But additionally, when people say some snarky shit, I'm not going to read it. I can't read it. That's how it rolls. And so we totally understand that people have hard-earned money, and we respect that if they choose to spend their money elsewhere.
Yeah, if you
can show Jimmy.
If you wanna come and say shitty things and slander our guests or people that are friends of the show or this show, go take your money someplace else. We're not gonna read your shitty insult because you gave me $5. That's not how it works.
What if I give you $10?
Okay, for 10.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like if somebody wants me to read a shitty comment about me, I'm not gonna be a dumbass and read it.
They won't let. Come here. And by the way, that's not censorship.
No, you sure?
You know what? They don't give me 5 minutes on Bill Maher's show. Is he censoring me?
Yes.
MSNBC, they won't let me come on and say what I want. Are they censoring me? No. Censoring is different. Censoring is squelching me from having my free speech in the public square. Okay.
All right. Luna Lager says $100 to insult the show at least.
Yes. Okay. I'll go 100. I will read all $100 insults. How about that?
Don't say that. All right. That's hilarious. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Jimmy should do whatever he damn well pleases. Twitter, I have a hard on for you. You already know that. So stop already. BK Stefan. This MF had a motive to time Jimmy for 7 minutes. Jimmy Dore is a soldier without a uniform. I was going to donate to Epstein's project, but forget it. He basically told people not to vote. I don't think he's aware of that. NJ Effer, thank you. Akita Hart. It's establishment versus anti-establishment. The two parties are the establishment. I feel sorry for the small-minded who are stuck in the tribalism. It clouds their judgment. I pray they break free. What a great, yes. I pray they break free. Akita at heart. Cornpop the Batter Dude, much appreciated for your recommendation. Hannah, sir, thank you very much. The Democrats are embracing GOP neocons, say that they are putting country over party. The country is the United States of Israel. W to the third. Thank you so much. Healing Tarzan. Much appreciated for your recommendation, Healing Tarzan. Hanneser, thank you very much, Hanneser. Sandra will watch that documentary on Epoch. Much appreciated. 9/11 is on Wednesday. Have Ryan back on Wednesday for a 9/11 show. Great idea. We'll see if he's available. Keep in mind, a lot of Americans who are accused of sexual assault, if they are Jewish, flee to Israel, and Israel does not extradite to the USA like the Tinder swindler. Goo81. Healing Tarzan, thank you very much, Healing Tarzan. Much appreciated. FSL, much appreciated. Jaybird, I read that one already. More of a cult, Democrats or Scientology? Jimmy, what do you think is more of a cult, Democrats or Scientology?
I'd say they're neck and neck.
That's what I said. We have so much in common. We really do. Thank you, Jimmy. Ryan has all the receipts. Thank you, F. Hassau. You were all awesome in Jacksonville. We had such a great time in Jacksonville.
Thank you for coming on. I had a great time, too.
It was at Feck Jess Maye. Thank you, Jim Wheat. I appreciate the recommendation. 5 more, maybe 6 more. Here we go, opening them up. There's a lot here. Okay. Thank you, Goo81. Much appreciated. Did I read that one? And that one. Okay. Tonight's show has got me jacked up, Killdozer. That is so funny, Killdozer. The Lorax, all the architects of the hellish future that we are all plotting towards, will die free of old age. Now be honest with yourself about who is really responsible for it. The Lorax. Thank you for having Ryan Dawson on your show. Love to see the collab, Conspiriality. Thank you very much. Hanneser, thank you. I read that one. Is it weird that we refer to the tip of the iceberg of soldier? I read that one, Salvius Tryphon. Epstein called the Dems far left, which brings his whole ideology into question. Web Angel, thank you so much, Web Angel. Rasa Famediga gift, thank you. Twitter, thanks again. Conservacuck, thank you very much. The Epoch Times reported that the Nevada Supreme Court removed Jill Stein from the November ballot. Oh my God. That's the kind of democracy that Bernie Sanders believes in. Okay, and this one, let's see here. Hanneser, thank you so much for it. Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like we're going to be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. We will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. PT to watch the debate with you. Bye.
Les informamos que el desembarque se realizará únicamente por la puerta delantera del avión.
What do black people and watermelons have in common?
What?
The greatest natural predator is black people. I'm gonna sue y'all ass.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
At this time, more than any other time, you know, revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, you know, the babies that have been murdered, you know, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, you know, money poor people. You know, this government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But you know, something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. You know, we don't really know what war is. You know, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, you know, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison, but they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, you know, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, you know, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators, and they're going to have riots on their hands. You know, they're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. You know, we have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, you know, what we need, what needs to be done. And, you know, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. I mean, you know, don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, you know, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, you know, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, you know, this system and those backing the officials running the system, you know, want people to believe that revolution means violence, you know, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. You know, when people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. You know, they get it from us accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it. Then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. You know, every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. I mean, our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. You know, men, women, and children were murdered. And not just move babies, you know. What about all of the young men, women, you know, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, you know, by drug pushers? I mean, you know, where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, you know, making a quick buck, you know. I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, you know, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.